Timeless Assassin by author Raj_Shah_ 7152 Chapter 226-250. Rodova Team Villa. Lockdown Day 2, Sky God Arena, the private villa sector. While Dupraval Nunes spent his night buried deep within the underbelly of Twin Fang, torturing the soul of a resurrected cultist to wring every last shred of truth from his ash-bound lips, the students of Rodova, though far removed from the same level of darkness, carried their own burdens in the aftermath of the attack. Those who had recovered enough from their injuries, and had enough strength in them to stand, talk, and keep down solid food were gradually moved from the medical bay to the Rodova Team Villa, where they were quarantined just like the other commoners in attendance, held under lockdown as the investigation continued. Yet even though they had technically emerged as champions of the tournament, crowned atop the leaderboard with glory that once would have been cause for thunderous celebration and wild banquets, there was no festivity in the air. No cheers, no parties, not even a quiet toast. Because the Sky God Arena, once a grand hall of competition and pride, had become a massacre site, and with over 2,000 corpses still being processed just a few kilometers away from them, nobody seemed in particularly high spirits. The atmosphere within the Rodova team quarters was muted and hollow. Even as food trays came and went, and instructors occasionally checked in, the students mostly kept to themselves, drifting between rooms or sitting together in the common space, the silence broken only by the occasional conspiracy or whispered memory of the chaos they'd witnessed. There was a guard, just a few rows above where we were seated, Coley murmured, as he sat cross-legged on the floor, rubbing his arms absently. He was a sleeper agent. I saw him switch sides mid-fight with my own eyes. That man cut down 2 families before he was stopped. I heard that too. Boxer nodded grimly, seated beside him with his back against the couch. They said his badge and uniform was fake, but he had real weapons, the actual government-issued short knife. Which makes me wonder how he got it. I heard worse, DP added, eyes darting from one side of the room to the other, lowering his voice. Word going around is, someone from the universal government wanted this to happen. That the casualties were mostly relatives and affiliates of the 6 great clans, and the higher-ups just let it happen to reduce their influence. That's bullshit, Yu Shen muttered from his place near the window, arms crossed, and face angry. If that's true, we're not just looking at some cult war, this would be a full-blown galactic war. Yeah, well, a big war feels kind of likely right now, doesn't it? Drake said, his voice dry, his fingers tapping nervously on the glass of water in his hand. Minerva didn't speak. She just sat quietly at the corner of the table, listening, her eyes hollow and distant, as she did not add anything to this pointless discussion. Then, as the front door suddenly opened, all heads turned. There, standing on the threshold, covered in fresh bandages and an arm brace, was Leo, who moved with an awkward motion, unlike his usual grace. For a heartbeat, nobody said anything after looking at him, until, "Hey, look who's back!" Enzo shouted, springing to his feet with a massive grin as he rushed forward, arms wide open like a man welcoming home his long-lost brother. Without hesitation, he wrapped Leo into a tight, bone-crushing hug that made Leo's ribs throb just from the contact. "Damn, man, you really pulled it off. We saw the whole thing, twice. Professor David taped the whole fight, and we saw it together last night." Enzo grinned, stepping back slightly, clapping him on the shoulder with genuine warmth. One by one, the rest followed suit. Boxer was next, pulling Leo into a rough, one-armed hug with a toothy grin and a muttered, "You crazy bastard, I thought you were done for when you fell in that pit. Good to see you alive and okay, my man." Then came Coley, eyes misting as he hugged him quietly, not saying much, just holding him a moment longer than the others. Followed by Yu Shen, who gave him a warm smile and a firm handshake. "Thank you. By winning the circuits you made my dream, and the dreams of all the Rodova captains before me come true. Because of you, I can sleep just fine, because God knows I wouldn't have, if Rodova lost and I did not win my match," Yu Shen said, as his eyes watered up. He was usually a pretty chill guy, however, Leo knew exactly how much winning the circuit meant to him, and now that he had the chance to properly express his gratitude, he did just that. It was a team effort, I didn't bring us to the finals alone, Leo replied, as Yu Shen gave him a curt nod, before leaving the queue as Minerva stepped forward last. Welcome back, she said in a soft voice before giving him a shy hug, as Leo smiled back. And just like that, the atmosphere within the villa shifted. The grief didn't vanish, the fear didn't disappear, but for the first time since the explosions, there was warmth. There was a cause for celebration, as no longer did the team talk about gloomy stuff but rather excitedly recalled Leo's battles against the Geneva Warriors. And even though Leo stood in the center of it all, letting each hug, handshake, and smile wash over him like waves against a stone, his mind remained quiet, calculating, detached. He didn't particularly like the attention, or the physical touch, but he did his best to endure and blend in, as he did not want to kill the joy of his teammates, who did deserve this happiness after all the hard work they had put in through the season. Su Yang, you fool. If only you were here, I'm sure you would have enjoyed this, Leo thought, as he let out a deep sigh. As although Leo had recovered enough to return, Su Yang, who had received a gaping wound straight through his abdomen during the circuits, was yet to be medically cleared and was expected to remain in the medical bay for a couple more days. That aside, it was rare for Leo to miss anyone, as his memory loss had stripped away most of the emotional ties he might have once had, leaving behind a void whereby he seldom craved company. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, Su Yang had started to become an exception. These past few months of training together and pushing their limits side by side had caused Leo to grow slightly fond of him, and while it was not enough to be called true friendship, it was still enough to make his absence noticeable. Their relationship had grown to a point where Leo no longer minded his company, and on some days, even preferred it to being alone, which was a huge milestone for someone as cold as him. Oh, you're back. A female voice interrupted his thoughts, as Mian Fei looked at him with her usual stern gaze restored. Once you're done greeting everyone, come meet me in my room, I need to prepare you for some questions that the investigators might have for you later, Fei instructed, as Leo gave her a curt nod in response. After greeting everyone present in the living room, Leo moved towards Mian Fei's private quarters which were also located on the ground floor. However, as he moved towards her room, the male teammates in the room began making some inappropriate jokes. Oh, how I wish to be alone in Instructor Fei's quarters. She's quite a looker, that's for sure, Coley said, as he ran his fingers through his hair and put forward a lewd face. But she won't invite you alone in there, Coley, you're not a champion like Skyshard here, DP teased, as the others chuckled. Go get her, Tiger. Make sure you listen to every advice she has to offer, cause that's how you improve your performance. Enzo added, as Leo shot them all a disgusted glare before knocking softly on Fei's door. Knock, knock. Fei opened the door with her usual stern face, before stepping out, as she looked at the rowdy bunch chuckling in the living room. I heard that, she said, as she threw them all a death stare, which instantly made Enzo, Coley and DP turn ashen white. Of course they were just joking. Messing with Leo for the sake of it, however, for Instructor Fei to have heard it made them scared to their core. Thankfully, she took no further action and just gestured for Leo to get in, as they seemed to get a free pass just for today. Within Mian Fei's room, as soon as Fei closed the door behind Leo, she began weaving a series of layered spells such as noise cancellation barriers, anti-surveillance wards, and a few other glyphs Leo didn't quite recognize. However, they were all designed to secure the room for maximum privacy, so that the two could have a proper discussion without having to worry about any of their conversation leaking to the outside world. Fei moved with quiet urgency, her expression sharper than usual, her presence heavier, as Leo could tell right away that whatever she had to say wasn't going to be ordinary. Is everything all right? He asked, his voice cutting through the silence. But she didn't answer. Not yet. Not until the final ward dimmed into place, and the last flicker of ambient mana settled into stillness. Only then did she turn to face him, her eyes unreadable, her posture rigid, letting him know without saying a word that what followed would matter. "We are currently in a difficult position," Ni and Fei confessed, as Leo felt his stomach drop a little before stabilizing. He did not like how the conversation opened on a grim note, however, he simply gestured for Fei to continue. "I can't tell you the bits that might implicate you, should they scrutinize your memories later, so I will tell you this story in a way where you will have to connect a lot of the missing context yourself and draw your own conclusions at times," Fei explained, as Leo nodded in understanding. "My real name is not Mi and Fei, my real name is actually Mu Fan," Fei said as she removed her artificial hair and makeup, revealing her true stunningly beautiful appearance to Leo. The real her did not have black hair and brown eyes, but rather red hair and gray eyes, that made her look much more intense than her disguise. With her being a transcendent level warrior, she looked as young as any student of the academy, and Leo could easily make out how Mu Fan was sure to have many suitors based on how beautiful and exquisite she looked. "I am a branch leader within the Mu clan, but my real affiliation lies somewhere else, somewhere alongside." She paused, as she gestured towards the direction of the Sky God Arena, letting Leo make the connection on his own. Nodding, Leo immediately picked up on the fact that Fei was associated with the cult, as surprisingly, this revelation did not shock him one bit. He had always suspected this after the kind of ghost sleep visions he saw, and today just happened to be a confirmation of his hypothesis. "Even the Mu clan has no idea where my loyalties actually lie, as I'm undercover in the academy under the clan's orders. Which is why, after your survival, the Mu family patriarch was the first to come and greet you, as in that short public exchange, he sent me a private message," Fei spoke, as Leo raised a concerned eyebrow at this revelation. "The Mu clan patriarch's third son has been cast out into the universe with no memories of his past, nor any recollection of his connection to the clan. However, unlike you, he's not doing well for himself. His talent is merely that of a Grandmaster tier individual, and his progress as a warrior has been unsatisfactory. He is a stain to the Mu family main branch, which is why the Patriarch is planning to secretly replace him with you within the clan," Fei said, as Leo felt shivers run down his spine as he heard those words. "Currently, everyone within the upper echelons of the universe is digging into you and your past after your performance in the circuit finals, and it's only a matter of time before someone finds out the real truth behind your identity. Although, the attention of major organizations currently is more preoccupied with the attack that happened, sooner or later, their attention will fall back on you, which is why it's imperative we act fast," Fei said, as her own face contorted into an ugly smile. "Almost everyone is assuming currently that you're a hidden spawn of the Mu clan. Because it's simply not possible for children born outside the 6 great clans or some known powerhouse to have such terrifying bloodline potential. And even the Mu family patriarch is assuming that you're my own son. Which is why he's willing to adopt and replace you with his third son. I am the great-granddaughter of the Mu clan god. Making my blood one of the purest within the Mu clan, and although I'm not from the main family, my influence within the clan is significant. The current patriarch is my grand-uncle, and he absolutely insists that I convince you to become the third young master," Fei said, as her voice cracked slightly. "And if you take the offer, it won't be a bad decision. The Mu clan is powerful, they will help take care of your past, ensure that all criminal records of Leo Skyshard were wiped clean, and that an extensive history of you actually being the third young master is forged. You will live the life of a king. Have access to unlimited resources. Struggle for nothing. However, should you accept this offer, I will never return your memories to you. Accepting this offer means saying goodbye to your old life forever. It means that you ditch being Leo Skyshard and accept your identity as Mu Wooden, and that will be that. However, if you reject it, know that with the amount of scrutiny on your back, someone somewhere might find out that you're actually not supposed to be in Rodova, that you're actually a wanted criminal, and put a massive target on your back. However, that way, I'll return your memories after you manage to join the Black Serpents. The choice is yours. Joining the Mu clan means security and prestige. While choosing to live your life as Leo Skyshard, means you continue to struggle like a worm and continue being put in difficult situations throughout your life. So, what will it be? Faye asked, as Leo's face cracked into a daunting smile. Leo understood the gist of the situation based on Mu Fan's explanation. Although she couldn't explain the whole picture clearly, she still told him enough for Leo to draw his own conclusions. And the key takeaways Leo had from her speech were: 1. Faye belonged to the evil cult. She was a member of that universally hated group, which most likely meant that his own backer was the evil cult as well. 2. Faye was actually a part of the Mu clan, and the Mu clan seemed to have no idea that she had defected. And although Leo had no clue as to why the Mu clan planted her in the Rodova Military Academy or what her official role within the clan was, if he had to guess why, Leo assumed that one of his classmates this year, who seemed to be from a commoner background, was actually a Mu clan descendant. And after thinking back on the very first day of the academy, where Su Yong beat up a poor, innocent kid who claimed to have memory loss, Leo became even more sure that perhaps that kid was none other than Mu Wooden. 3. Somehow, there seemed to be a misunderstanding amongst the higher powers in the universe that he was perhaps from the Mu clan. This misunderstanding may have stemmed from his memory loss and bloodline prowess, and it was exactly this rumor that the Mu family patriarch wanted to capitalize on. 4. Since Mu Wooden was such a disappointment to the family, the patriarch wanted to replace Wooden with him in the clan to save face and show the universe that his bloodline had not run cold. The Su family had Su Yong, and the Yu family had Yu Shen, which made their social appearance look strong. Hence, if it were to be revealed that Leo Skyshard was actually Mu Wooden, the social image of the Mu clan would be elevated several times, and the patriarch would be able to lift his head with pride at having Leo as a son versus the actual Wooden. 5. However, while it was the patriarch's wish for him to take the place of Mu Wooden, it seemed like Mi and Faye did not want the same for him. Although she offered him a choice, her putting the caveat that he would have to let go of his previous identity if he accepted it was indicative of her true thoughts. In conclusion, Leo understood that Faye had only offered him this choice today because she expected the Mu clan to approach him separately as well and try to entice him with the same offer, which was why she decided it would be better if it came from her rather than someone else. However, in her heart, she did not want Leo to take the offer. And thankfully for her, Leo had no intentions of living his life as the Mu clan young master either. He truly cared for the well-being of his family, and their safety and security were his first priority. Hence, although he understood that rejecting the Mu clan's offer meant gambling with his future, where his real past may be exposed at any moment, Leo still chose to take that risky path, as it was the only path whereby he could help his family. Smiling, he looked straight into Faye's eyes as he said, "I choose option 2. Fuck the Mu clan, I'm only interested in joining the Black Serpents and getting my memories back." As listening to his words, Faye immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Huff. Faye exhaled sharply, her lips curling into a small smile. Good choice. I know it wasn't an easy one, but you choosing it regardless shows character, Skyshard. Many people can only dream of being a prince of the main clan. But you don't care for it. You're truly a unique one, Faye complimented, as Leo simply shrugged his shoulders in nonchalance. I know in my core I'm not a prince. However, did you see how many princes I wiped clean in the finals? My talent is no weaker than them either, Leo replied with pride, as Faye nodded in agreement. It for sure isn't, and trust me, I'll do everything I can in my power to keep you safe. As long as I'm alive, I'll try my best that no harm befalls you. Even if it means adopting you as my son, Faye said, her voice cracking slightly when she said, son. It was a big deal for her to take Leo in as her son, even if it was only for the sake of creating an alibi. As declaring him as her child would significantly lower her standing within the Mu clan, as no longer would she be seen as a virgin who could be shipped off to another clan in times of political crisis, which would anger many elders within the clan. However, despite the consequences, Faye was ready to face it all. As if Leo was ready to reject the life of a prince for the sake of the mission, Then she too was ready to make sacrifices on her part, to give him as legitimate of an identity as she could. It will take me some time to get your background created, and I'm sure it will be very difficult to curry favors within the universal government to manipulate the record books after this terrorist attack. However, I'll still get it done. Rest assured, Skyshard. I'll do my best to protect you, Faye assured again, as she began to put her makeup back on, signaling that the conversation was nearing its conclusion. What about the current active investigation about the terrorist attack? You think they'll call me to take my testimony? Leo asked, as Faye shook her head. Unlikely. If they wanted to call you, they would have the moment you were medically cleared. The fact that you're here means they don't suspect your involvement, Faye assured, her confidence allowing Leo to breathe a sigh of relief. All right then, I guess I'll take my leave, Leo said, walking toward the door, as Faye nodded and gave him permission to walk out. Clink. As Leo closed the door after exiting, Faye immediately pulled out the communication crystal she had been hiding. On the other side, the evil cult elder had been listening to their entire exchange live, and only after Leo left did he speak the first words. The boy is grounded, Faye. He doesn't seem to have his ego inflated after the circuit win, nor does he seem to be the type that actively chases glory or fame. He possesses the qualities to be made the next dragon, the man said, his voice deep, calm, and calculated, as he seemed very cautious in his optimism regarding Leo having the qualities to become the next dragon. I told you he's perfect to become the next dragon candidate. If only you introduced him to the cult, he wouldn't have been targeted so rashly, Faye complained, as the man on the other side rebuked her instantly. If I had introduced him, your cover alongside his would already be blown. It is only because of the genuine threat to his life in the attack that nobody is suspecting the boy of foul play. I'd say it all played out pretty well in the end, the man replied, his tone razor-sharp and mercilessly logical. He's not ready to be crowned dragon just yet, but I'll speak about him to a couple more elders I trust and do my best to have his past records cleaned. The cult will start investing in Leo Skyshard from now on, that much I promise, he said before terminating the connection, as Faye felt a slow, confident surge built within her, not from relief, but readiness, as the game seemed to be moving into its next phase. The cult was finally ready to support Leo from the shadows, and that was the first big step in his journey to officially becoming a dragon. Commander Jackson's POV, Temporary Investigation Center, Sky God Arena Perimeter, Lockdown Day 2. After 48 hours of non-stop investigation, dozens of witness interrogations, and 2 sleepless shifts at the helm of the Sky God Arena Task Force, Commander Jackson finally compiled his preliminary report on the terror attack. Unfortunately, it wasn't much. As he found no smoking gun, no names of any central mastermind that had orchestrated the assault, nor any hot trails that could help trace the kidnappers of Darnell Nuna. What stood before him was a massacre that was meticulously timed and flawlessly executed. As it seemed to have been carried out by independent sleeper cells that self-destructed upon mission completion, leaving behind no loose ends. Still, despite the lack of credible cult witnesses to interrogate, the task force did manage to extract a few critical insights, none of which were particularly comforting. 1. Infiltration method, completely unknown. Despite extensive testimony from surviving guards and patrolmen with no known cult affiliation, no one could explain how the sabotage of the central battlefield had taken place. The explosives that triggered the collapse of the arena's core had been planted into the structural joints days before the event. With the shocking part not being that they were planted early, but rather that they were never noticed in the days that followed. No maintenance worker, no engineer, no safety overseer, observed anything out of the ordinary, and even safety sweeps failed to pick up on anything. The bombs weren't cloaked in advanced stealth fields or hidden inside dimensional pockets. They had been left out in the open, but still camouflaged so effectively that no detection system picked them up. Which led to the next, more disturbing point. 2. Camouflage beyond current Alliance capabilities. The materials used to mask the explosives were of unknown origin, and likely not from any recognized manufacturer or faction within the Universal Alliance. Even high-level monofiltration and thermal spectrography failed to detect residue from the explosives post-detonation. Which meant that in essence, the bombs were disguised using a technique that surpassed the scientific and magical detection standards of even the top-tier laboratories and tech divisions across Allied territories. Not a single blacksmith or engineer within Alliance ranks could replicate the camouflage method, as that discovery alone made one thing clear: the evil cult wasn't just surviving in the shadows, but also thriving in science and technology. 3. No evidence of cross-communication between operatives. Cross-referencing arena security footage, movement logs, and mana footprint data yielded another unsettling revelation: the attackers had no contact with each other before or during the mission. No signals, no hand gestures, no overlapping paths. Each operative functioned independently, executing their task with surgical precision, fully aware that they would not live to see the next sunrise. Their compartmentalized instructions ensured operational integrity. No individual had enough information to compromise the whole plan, and even if one or two failed or were discovered, the rest would proceed unimpeded. The mission had no single fail point, only a system of zealots, bred to obey and primed to die. 4. Primary target: Darnell Nuna. Timeline sequencing and multiple eyewitness accounts confirmed what many had already suspected. Darnell Nuna, the son of Monarch Dupravel Nuna and rising prodigy of Geneva Military Academy, was the main target of this attack. The strike unit responsible for his capture demonstrated superior coordination, carried better equipment, and operated under a more refined chain of command. Their exit strategy involved spatial displacement technology far beyond civilian-grade capabilities, suggesting this team was deployed from the highest echelons of the evil cult. Beside Darnell, the others who lost their lives in this attack were mostly veteran warriors, political enforcers, and high-profile cult enemies. As only after those objectives were met, did the surviving agents descend into chaos, where they began killing indiscriminately to achieve maximum chaos. 5. Compromised government infrastructure. Perhaps the most damning observation of all was the uncomfortable truth about internal corruption. The bombs had been planted too cleanly. The weapons, supplies, and disguises too easily smuggled in. The infiltration was not a fluke, nor was it simply the result of lax security. It was assisted. Official credentials used during the attack were authenticated and cleared through legitimate channels. Several of the fallen operatives had been granted arena access via fully verified command logs. Which meant only one thing: the cult had allies inside the system. Not rogue hackers. Not bribed freelancers. Sympathizers. Sleeper agents embedded within the ranks of the universal government itself. And if that was true, then no branch was safe. No perimeter reliable. No alliance secure. Jackson let the report fall onto the edge of his desk, its hard light projection flickering softly as he leaned back in his chair, his temples throbbing from the weight of what he had just confirmed. The Sky God Arena incident wasn't just a terrorist attack. It wasn't even a massacre. It was a message. A demonstration by the cult for the Righteous Alliance. With the message being that, we can reach you, we can take your children, we can do it under your nose, and you won't even know who we are. As just thinking about it, Jackson exhaled sharply, fingers tightening around the edge of the desk. It wasn't the attack itself that bothered him, but rather the systemic corruption that did. The current government structure was hollow, with thousands of evil cult sympathizers holding top ranks, and weeding them out was surely going to be a pain. I need to start building a team I can trust. It may take me 2 to 3 years to get to the bottom of this, but given enough time, I'm confident I can uncover the full truth. The current reach of the evil cult extends far beyond anything we previously imagined, and if they aren't stopped soon, they'll replace the existing government from the inside out without anyone realizing it until it's far too late. This isn't just a rogue threat anymore, it's something the war generals and the sovereign gods themselves will have to get involved in eventually. Because if left unchecked, this could mark the end of the Righteous Alliance as we know it. Jackson whispered the words to himself, lighting up a cigar with slow, deliberate fingers as the full weight of the situation finally settled on his shoulders. For nearly 2 decades, the evil cult had been uncharacteristically silent, fading into obscurity, with their influence seemingly withering after the death of their last dragon. And for a time, it truly seemed as though they'd lost the will to rise again. But what they had actually done was lie dormant, gathering strength in the shadows, as they waited for the right moment to strike. The attack on the Sky God Arena wasn't an isolated incident. It was a signal flare marking the start of the evil cult's resurgence. And now, the universe was on the verge of plunging back into chaos, as the eternal war between light and darkness prepared to erupt once more. This time, Jackson could feel it in his bones that only one side would emerge from the storm intact while the other was sure to be annihilated, as this attack was a clear indication that the two factions could surely no longer coexist together, whereby they simply ignored the existence of the other. Darnell Nunes Pav, Unknown Planet, Evil Cult Custody, Day 3. I thought the evil cult's base would be like something out of a necromancer's dungeon: damp stone walls, iron chains, the stench of rotting flesh, and skulls arranged like decor, Darnell mused as he sat by the window, peering out over the shimmering skyline of what looked like a rather well-functioning city. But to his surprise, none of those dark fantasy clichés applied. He wasn't tied up. He wasn't being tortured. Hell, he wasn't even being watched all the time. His room had a real mattress, high quality too, fluffy pillows, clean sheets, and a panoramic view of a sprawling city bathed in warm dusk light. Occasionally, people even knocked politely before delivering his meals. Is this really the evil cult? He wondered again, brow furrowed, spoon halfway to his mouth. The food was good. A little rich for his taste, but seasoned well. Knock. Asterisk. Knock. Asterisk. The sound snapped him from his thoughts, and he quickly turned toward the door as it slid open with a soft hiss. An old man stepped in, short, well-dressed, with laugh lines carved deep into the sides of his cheeks and a gentle twinkle in his eyes that didn't match the reputation of the faction he supposedly served. "Good evening, young Master Nuna," the man said warmly, his tone so relaxed it almost felt like a grandfather greeting a grandson. "I'm called Mighty Mouse," he added, offering a light bow. Darnell blinked. "Mighty what now?" he said, letting out a laugh. "That's your name. Well," the old man chuckled along, "a nickname, really. One I've carried for some time. People remember it better than my real one, so I've grown quite fond of it." "You cult folks really aren't what I expected," Darnell admitted, still chuckling. "You're more polite than half the academy instructors have had." "We do our best to make guests feel welcome," Mighty Mouse said, pulling up a chair and sitting with a soft grunt. "Tell me something, Darnell. May I call you Darnell?" "Sure. Tell me, how was your childhood? What kind of memories did you make with your father?" Darnell's face immediately lit up, his smile stretching wide as he leaned forward, enthusiasm bubbling in his voice. "He's the best, strongest man in the universe, hands down. I used to watch him train guild members from the shadows, thinking he was like some mythical beast. But he's not all scary, you know. At home, he was soft. Funny, even. The way he used to brush my hair or scold me when I stole sweets from the kitchen." His voice softened. "I bet he's worried sick for me right now." A sudden wave of guilt washed over his face, and his eyes lowered to the table, the smile slowly fading. Mighty Mouse observed all of it calmly, nodding with a thoughtful hum, but internally, his assessment was cold and clear. Emotionally untrained. This boy wears his emotions on his face, and has the maturity of a 7-year-old. Even though he's grown up physically, mentally and psychologically he's worse than most 5-year-olds. Dupravel has truly failed to give him a proper upbringing. Still smiling outwardly, he leaned forward and gently tapped the table. "You miss your father?" he asked, kindly. "Of course," Darnell responded instantly. "Well then, let's do something about that," Mighty Mouse said, producing a small scroll of paper and a glowing communication crystal from his robe. "I'll give you the coordinates to this planet. And with this crystal, you can record a message. Let him know where you are. We will forward it to him and then he can come pick you up if he wants." Darnell's eyes widened. "Wait, seriously? You're letting me send a message. Just like that. We're not monsters, dear boy, the old man said, smiling as he placed both items in front of him. Darnell picked them up slowly, his voice filled with surprise. Ayy, you folks are nice. Mighty Mouse chuckled again, though his eyes remained unblinking as he watched Darnell begin recording, the red shimmer of the crystal capturing every word. Hey Dad. It's me, Darnell. I'm okay, don't worry. These cult people haven't hurt me at all, they actually gave me a great room, with food and all, and there's this guy named Mighty Mouse, haha. Yeah I know, funny name, who's been really nice to me. Listen, I'm sending you the coordinates they gave me. You can come get me on this planet, alright? I miss you. Please come soon. As Darnell kept talking, Mighty Mouse leaned back slightly, steepling his fingers with a quiet hum of satisfaction, as everything was going just as planned. A few hours later, Planet Twin Fang. A miscellaneous package was delivered to Planet Twin Fang a few hours later, containing a copy of the message Darnell had recorded for his dad. The package, after being verified by the Black Serpent Guild security, quickly made its way up to the Guild Master's office, where Dupravel played it with the desperation of a man clinging to his last thread of sanity. The moment Darnell's face appeared in the projection, smiling, alive, and blissfully unaware of the storm his disappearance had caused, Dupravel's composure crumbled. As the recording played with cheerful innocence. Greater than, hey Dad. It's me, Darnell. I'm okay, don't worry. These cult people haven't hurt me at all, they actually gave me a great room, with food and all, and there's this guy named Mighty Mouse, haha. Yeah I know, funny name, who's been really nice to me. Listen, I'm sending you the coordinates they gave me. You can come get me on this planet, alright? I miss you. Please come soon. As the words ended and the light from the projection flickered off, Dupravel remained frozen in his seat, staring at the empty air as the silence in his chamber thickened like smoke. Then his shoulders began to tremble. One breath, two, and suddenly, he cracked. The first sob escaped his throat like a growl, as tears streamed down his face unchecked. He didn't try to hide them. Didn't bother wiping them. His heart, hardened through decades of bloodshed, shattered like brittle glass in the face of his son's voice. Antonio, he choked, his voice raw. Where is he? What are those coordinates? Antonio, who had been standing silently at the edge of the room, immediately stepped forward and keyed the numbers into his data slate. Beep, beep, beep. The screen pulsed once, then displayed a name. Antonio's hands froze mid-air, the color draining from his face, as the name that showed up terrified him. It, Antonio stuttered as Dupravel frowned. What is it? What? Dupravel urged, as Antonio finally blurted out the name. Ixtal. He's on Ixtal, God help us, he's on Ixtal. Dupravel's head snapped toward him. What? He barked, though the dread had already begun to seep into his veins. After all, Ixtal was the cult's spiritual homeland. The birthplace of the timeless assassin, the current residence of the evil god Soren. As for a second, even Dupravel looked stunned. Turning pale and paralyzed by the weight of what that name meant. Any other planet in the universe, and he would have marched in today with the full wrath of the Black Serpents, torching countries, breaking sanctums, raising the soil itself if need be. But not Ixtal. Ixtal wasn't a place you attacked. Ixtal wasn't a place you infiltrated. Ixtal wasn't a place you left alive. And as the full realization crashed over him, Dupravel let out a monstrous roar and hurled the data slate in Antonio's hand across the room, as he shattered it against the far wall. Crash! He flipped his obsidian desk, splintering it clean in two, even though it had been delivered just this morning. Smash! A gilded bookshelf collapsed beneath his fists, tomes of assassination records spilling like corpses onto the floor. Clang! The ancestral blades mounted on the wall clattered down as he slammed his shoulder into the steel panel. Antonio didn't move. He knew better than to interrupt the hurricane. Dupravel's chest heaved, teeth bared, fists bloodied from the wreckage. He's surrounded by monsters, he growled, voice low and venomous. They knew I couldn't reach him there. They planned this from the start. They sent this message to tease me. And for the first time in decades, perhaps centuries, Dupraval Nuna felt something he rarely admitted to, even to himself. Helplessness. Because his son wasn't just kidnapped. He was on Ixtal. And nobody, absolutely nobody, walked onto Ixtal uninvited and came back out alive. Not even monarchs. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Rodova Military Academy, Physical Training Grounds. Academy life resumed as usual for Leo the next day, as he slipped back into the familiar rhythm of lectures, drills, and endless training. However, one thing did change, which was that Su Yong seemed to be actively avoiding him now. Whether it was the morning endurance runs where they usually pushed each other stride for stride, or the partner drills in practical combat class where they always ended up facing off, Su Yong kept his distance today, as he paired up with others, and outright ignored Leo when they crossed paths. Leo noticed his odd behavior, of course. But he didn't push. He figured it was better to let Su Yong cool off in his own time, rather than force a confrontation that would only make things worse. And besides, Leo had other priorities occupying his mind now. As classes ended for the day, Leo headed straight for the Academy Skill Scroll Archive, eager to select the 2 remaining skills he was permitted to claim this semester. The archive was a towering facility, lined with endless rows of gleaming shelves and holographic terminals, which impressed Leo with its grandeur every time he entered. An assistant was already waiting for him at the entrance with a data slate in hand, bowing deeply as she saw Leo approach. "Mr. Skyshard," she said with professional courtesy. "You have already claimed 2 skill scrolls last semester. As per Academy regulations, you are entitled to choose 2 additional skills for your first academic year." She handed him a sleek black data slate, its surface lighting up as he touched it. "Since you are a monarch-level talent, there are no restrictions on the grade or type of skill you may select. Please take your time browsing." Leo nodded silently and moved towards one of the tiny seating chairs within the skill scroll archive, as he sat down and took his time browsing through the skill options. The archive interface displayed thousands of categorized skills before him, however, he already had an inkling to what he needed. The recent battles during the circuits had exposed the areas where he was still lacking, and after introspection, Leo knew precisely the areas he needed to improve on. Firstly, he needed to work more on his mobility. He had blade switch and basic evasion drills to reposition himself, but he needed something more advanced, something versatile that could help him reposition instantly mid-combat, confuse enemies, and add layers to his assault patterns, because seeing how Gu Ramos figured out his blade switch mid-battle, Leo knew that he couldn't rely on it as his sole card. And secondly, Leo felt like he needed to work on enemy restraint. Shadowbind had been useful against weaker opponents, but against top-tier foes, it simply didn't last long enough, nor could it fully lock down their movements. Since his legendary ranked skills became useless against transcendent level warriors or higher, Leo intended to replace Shadowbind completely from his arsenal, forgetting the move altogether, and replacing it with a superior version which did not occupy an additional skill slot. As per his understanding, he needed a move that could reliably pin down even peak-tier enemies, buying him precious seconds to land a critical blow. As although he pulled off landing Ball Buster against Jishin last time, he knew deep down that he wouldn't be so fortunate every time. Hence, with those goals in mind, he filtered the vast catalog of skill scrolls accordingly and narrowed down his options to 3 in each category. Mobility skill options. 1. Storm Flash Traverse. A short-range teleportation technique that allows the user to instantly flash between preset points within their line of sight. Once activated, the user can chain multiple flashes in rapid succession, provided they set the anchor points beforehand by mentally locking them during movement. This technique shines in chaotic battlefields, letting the user weave unpredictably through enemy lines, dodge area attacks, or even reposition for sneak attacks. Pros: nearly unavoidable repositioning ability in mid-combat. Perfect for dodging large-scale area attacks or overwhelming enemy targeting systems. Cons: extremely mana-intensive. Chaining more than 5 flashes can drain up to 20% of total mana pool for Grandmaster tier fighters. Requires mental focus to set anchor points correctly. Mistakes can cause flash errors or backfire. 2. Solar Rift Leap. A burst mobility technique where the user tears a tiny solar rift in space behind them and uses the explosive recoil to launch themselves forward at incredible speeds. Unlike teleportation, this technique creates a high-speed physical leap rather than bending space. It's particularly deadly when combined with mid-air attacks, as the rift shockwave can temporarily disorient nearby enemies, giving the user a brief opening to strike. However, it leaves a visible trace, meaning stealth-based users must be cautious of enemies reading their trail. Pros: instant acceleration for dodging or gap closing. Brief shockwave effect stuns nearby enemies, 0.5s disorientation window. Cons: leaves behind solar rift traces, giving away movement paths. Recoil needs excellent balance control to avoid missteps. 3. Spectral Pivot Flow. A hybrid footwork style focused on rapid, angular pivots that generate aftershock ripples in perception. To an observer, the user appears to blur during sharp movement transitions, making reading their attack direction far harder. Unlike traditional footwork, it deliberately uses momentary inertia breaks to distort enemy reaction timing. Perfect for dagger users, ambushers, or anyone who thrives on close quarters confusion, though it demands superior body control to pull off without spraining joints or exhausting stamina too quickly. Pros: creates visual lag in enemy perception, throwing off predictive counters. Low mana cost compared to teleportation or flashing techniques. Cons: physically taxing if overused, risks muscle fatigue or ankle injuries. Less effective against enemies relying on aura sense instead of sight. Restraint skill options. 1. Heaven's Chains. This technique summons radiant chains from the sky, descending with brutal speed to slam the enemy into the ground. Each chain is imbued with heavy suppressive force, locking movement and draining stamina from the bound target. Particularly effective against highly mobile or evasive opponents, but it requires a brief 1.5-second charge up where the caster must maintain uninterrupted line of sight. If cast successfully, however, it all but guarantees a kill window. Pros: strong crowd control, can completely immobilize mobile enemies. Chains sap stamina, weakening even if the enemy somehow breaks free. Cons: short but critical charge up delay, easily interrupted. Not ideal in tight indoor environments. Chains need vertical room to fall, at least 50 meters. 2. Bone Prison. A brutal containment skill where jagged skeletal pillars rise around a target, trapping them in a tightening cage. The unique structure of the prison reacts to blunt physical attacks by hardening further, making it superb for locking down berserkers or heavy melee types who try to muscle through obstacles. However, high-energy attacks, like plasma bursts or lightning strikes, can crack it faster, as the bones are poor conduits for energy dispersion. Pros: perfect defense against raw physical attackers. Instantly creates a psychological barrier, forcing enemies into panic. Cons: vulnerable to elemental or energy-based destruction. Can also unintentionally trap the user if cast poorly in narrow spaces. 3. Astral Hook Bind. A gravity manipulation skill where ethereal hooks, made of condensed astral energy, snag onto the target's joints, elbows, knees, ankles, slowing physical movements massively without fully freezing them. Unlike a traditional snare, Astral Hook doesn't anchor the whole body, but instead disrupts fine muscle control, making clean attacks or escapes almost impossible. Requires excellent aim to land the hooks during high-speed combat, but once latched, the effect is devastating. Pros: subtly ruins enemy movement without full immobilization, perfect for surgical takedowns. Works well even on high agility targets. Cons. Requires high targeting precision, a miss wastes the entire activation cost. The effect is gradual, not an instant stun. Leo scrolled through the details of each skill, absorbing the pros and cons quickly. Each one had merits. Each one filled the gaps he needed to address. But which combination would serve him best? He leaned back slightly, eyes narrowed at the glowing screen. I can only pick two. Mobility first, restraint second, but which ones? The choice would define the next step of his evolution, and Leo was determined to choose without regret. Rodova Military Academy, Skill Selection Archive. Leo thought about every skill option very seriously. He wasn't the kind to pick based on instinct or flashy descriptions, as every move he made had to fit into the overall puzzle of who he was building himself to become. The mobility options floated before him again. Spectral Pivot Flow was tempting at first. The ability to create perception lag, blur his movements, and throw off enemy counters would be invaluable. But the more Leo considered it, the more doubts surfaced. 1,000 Phantom Strikes already leaves behind afterimages. Can't I just use it to achieve a similar effect in battle? He mused, frowning slightly. He didn't want redundancy. He wanted evolution. Not to mention, Spectral Pivot Flow was physically taxing. Repeated pivots stressed the joints, ankles, and knees far more than traditional footwork. If he overused it during a prolonged fight, it could backfire horribly. No, he needed something that granted positional control without risking cumulative damage to his own body. Which was why his gaze shifted to Solar Rift Leap. Of the three options, Solar Rift Leap was probably the easiest one for him to pass over, as not only did the move have a long activation time, but it also compromised his stealth every time he used it. The whole point of him repositioning mid-combat was to gain a positional advantage against his opponent, and to take them on by surprise. However, if a skill compromised on the surprise element of it, it was as good as useless. Which was why he was left with the final option. Stormflash Traverse. This technique allowed him to make chain short-range flashes between mental anchor points. It facilitated instant movement that bypassed linear motion entirely, which was perfect for weaving through enemy lines or closing gaps against long-range attackers. If mastered, it could even be used aggressively, flashing straight into an enemy's blind spot mid-attack. Yes, the mana consumption was heavy. But Leo had already tempered his mana capacity beyond most of his peers. And overall he felt like it was better to risk high mana consumption than tear muscles and hobble himself mid-fight. It's dangerous, he admitted to himself. But then again, it was the best option of the bunch, and hence in the end he decided to go with it. Please confirm skill selection, Stormflash Traverse. Yes. No. The data slate asked him, as Leo locked in the selection with a firm tap of his thumb, before swiping the slate to bring up the restraint skills. The choice for restraint skills was even harder than movement ones, as Heaven's Chains, Bone Prison, and Astral Hook Bind were all good options, with each offering incredible value depending on the situation. Heaven's Chains was undoubtedly powerful. The sheer momentum of Celestial Chains slamming down could pin fast movers like Yu Shen or Gu Ramos in place for a kill shot. But the 1.5-second charge-up time nagged at him. Against high-speed opponents or in chaotic battles, even a single second of delay was an eternity. And Leo didn't like skills that left him exposed. Also, its failure to activate in small rooms without high ceilings was a major drawback, as it was impossible to always be fighting in the open, making it slightly impractical. In contrast, Bone Prison was better suited against bruisers and heavy melee types. Its reactive hardening made it a nightmare for berserkers to muscle through. But Leo wasn't afraid of brute force fighters to begin with. With his speed, perception, and precision, it was the swift, slippery enemies that truly endangered him. Which brought him to Astral Hook Bind. A gravity manipulation skill that didn't fully immobilize, but ruined muscle control subtly, cruelly. It wouldn't matter if the enemy was faster than him. Once hooked, their fine motor control would deteriorate. Their dodges would become sluggish. Their parries would become delayed. Their attacks would lose sharpness. And in that gap, Leo would strike. He read through the cons carefully again. High targeting precision needed. The hooks must land cleanly on joints for full effect. And this was one of the cons that made him feel like he could work around. As having absolute vision and high fine motor skills, Leo felt confident in his ability to land the hooks. I don't need a flashy trap. I think astral hook suits me better, Leo thought, as he input his second and final choice into the system. As he finalized both selections, Leo felt a small surge of satisfaction bloom in his chest. Stormflash Traverse for instant, unpredictable movement. Astral Hook Bind for silently wrecking enemy balance. Both risky. Both divine grade. Both perfect for him. He stood up slowly, handing the slate back to the archive assistant. These two, he said simply. As the assistant bowed deeply. Understood, Mr. Skyshard. Your scrolls will be retrieved at once. Meanwhile, in Principal Ulrich's office, Ladina Horizon personally showed up at Rodova Military Academy, when Principal Ulrich sent a letter of distress to the Horizon Dominion Merchant Group. Ladina, just like Ulrich, was not at all amused by Leo's decision to leave the academy early, as he was currently the hottest prospect across the cosmos. Not only was he the best emerging fighter from last year's circuits, but he was also the child who survived the evil cult assault, making him the talk of the town everywhere. Ladina had big plans for Leo once his semester ended and the gloom surrounding the terrorist attack faded from public consciousness. As once the gloom faded, Horizon could capitalize on his popularity, and launch a massive ad campaign with his face plastered everywhere. However, his sudden decision to join the Black Serpents put that all in jeopardy. What's gotten into the boy? Does he not care for money or fame? Does he not understand how hot of a prospect he is right now? Everyone will be expecting to see him in the circuits next year, and the anticipation of his return will only make his fanbase follow him that much closer throughout the year. Very few, if any, first-year fighters receive as much attention as that kid, and he wants to just leave it all behind to become a sellsword. Ladina vented, as she couldn't believe the level of stupidity behind Leo's decision. And for what? To repay some debt of honor. Who even cares about honor in this day and age? That kid has a few nuts loose, that's for sure, Ulrich added, as he poured himself and Ladina the most expensive glass of wine he had. Clink. Sip. The two clinked glasses before taking a sip, as Ladina paced around the room, thinking of a strategy to blackmail Leo onto the right path. She did have some interesting details on his past that no one else was privy to, however, she wasn't sure if she wanted to use that card yet. As far as possible, she wanted to keep things cordial between herself and her newest top star, and not make him feel like the Horizon Group was holding him hostage in this relationship. However, if civil talk failed, she did intend to use his past against him, as she was simply not ready to let Leo destroy his career so early by making wrong life choices. Rodova Military Academy, Skill Archive entrance. As soon as Leo stepped out of the Skill Archive, he found Principal Ulrich's personal assistant waiting for him outside, standing stiffly by the door with a clipboard in hand. The moment she spotted him, she gave a hurried bow. Mr. Skyshard, Principal Ulrich requests your immediate presence. If you would follow me, please. Leo gave a small nod, tucking the newly issued holographic scrolls under his arm, and followed her without question. He didn't know what Ulrich wanted now, but something about the assistant's anxious pace made it clear that this wasn't a casual summons. When Leo stepped into Ulrich's office a few minutes later, he immediately noticed there was someone else already waiting inside. A woman. She stood near Ulrich's desk, dressed in a sharply tailored black business suit that somehow managed to look both practical and devastatingly expensive. Her shiny black hair with a few blue highlights was swept into a clean bun that framed her face in a way that looked beautiful, commanding, and cold all at once. Leo didn't recognize her at all, though there was something about the sharp look in her eyes that instantly set him on guard. Who is she? He wondered, as Ulrich, standing behind his desk, gave a tight smile. Leo, Ulrich said, gesturing toward the woman, I want you to meet Mrs. Ladina Horizon, the CEO of the Horizon Dominion Group, and your primary sponsor. The woman smiled, extending a hand toward him, which Leo took and shook politely, offering the minimum grip needed to avoid seeming rude. Congratulations on your victory in the circuits, Leo, Ladina said smoothly, her voice warm and inviting. You were truly the highlight of the tournament. And, she added, tilting her head slightly, I'm deeply sorry for what happened afterwards. It must have been a truly traumatizing experience. Thank you, Leo said simply, releasing her hand. She waited, expecting him to say more. But he didn't. He just stood there, posture relaxed but distant, his gray eyes giving away nothing, as his indifference made Ladina frown inwardly. Usually, when people met someone of her stature, they just wouldn't shut up. They would flood her with praise, make jokes, share their ambitions, or do anything to catch her attention, to somehow curry her favor, to try and tie themselves to the Horizon name. But Leo looked like he didn't even want to be in the room, and this cold nature of his made him very hard to deal with. He clearly isn't motivated by money, Ladina thought with a slight inward scoff. If he were motivated by money, he would be sucking my toes right now just like everyone else at corporate do all the time, but he isn't. So I need to approach him differently. Ladina concluded, as forcing a slightly brighter smile onto her lips, she moved to the real reason behind why she was here. Leo, she said, smoothing the lapels of her suit jacket. Principal Ulrich has shared some concerns about your future plans. She exchanged a brief look with Ulrich before continuing. And frankly, I can't help but agree with him. Leo didn't react. He simply waited. As far as I can see, Ladina pressed on, leaving Rodova after just 1 year, after everything you've already achieved here, is not a wise decision. You are poised to become a household name, Leo. She began pacing slowly, her heels clicking softly against the polished floor. Next year's circuits would be your stage. Millions of fans are already waiting to see your return. The media buzz, the sponsorship deals, the universal endorsements, you would cement your status as a superstar. And beyond the fame, Rodova provides the safest environment for you to grow stronger, smarter, better. Her eyes sharpened slightly. The black serpents are powerful, yes. But they won't nurture you. They won't invest in your long-term future. They'll use you, throw you into danger, and if you die, they'll just replace you with the next talented fool. She stopped pacing, turning to face him fully. For someone with your potential, Leo, this isn't the optimal decision. Not for your career, not for your future, and certainly not for your life. As your sponsor, and as someone who has more practical experience of living in this universe than you do, I feel concerned about a youth like yourself destroying their future, so I give you this advice, as if I'm your elder sister, Ladina said, as for a moment, the room was quiet. Ulrich looked at Leo expectantly. Ladina waited, sure that her carefully constructed argument would sway at least some part of him. However, Leo met her gaze with no change in his expression, and when he finally spoke, his voice made it clear that he didn't give two fucks about the arguments she just made. I agree with everything you said. It's not like I don't understand that joining the Black Serpents is not the best path for my future growth, he began. But for some men, honor is more important than money or power, and I just happen to be one of them, he continued without raising his voice, as he did not wish to preach, but was rather just stating an immutable fact. For me, the debt of honor I owe Darnell Nuna is absolute. I cannot rest in good conscience knowing he's out there, captured, while I enjoy the luxuries of this life. Leo said, as he bowed his head slightly, not in apology, but in firm respect. My decision to join the Serpents is not about fame. It's not about making the right choice. It's about honor, he concluded, as Ladina couldn't help but click her tongue softly in disapproval. TCH. I expected as much. She thought internally, however, maintained her polite smile outwardly. Because while Leo's heart was clearly set, she wasn't ready to give up just yet. Not by a long shot. Leo. I assume you're a practical child. You are, aren't you? Ladina began, her tone chiding as if talking to a child. The Black Serpents Guild already has dozens of Transcendent level and tens of thousands of Grandmaster level warriors trying to find Darnell, so tell me how you going there will change that equation even slightly. And even if you do find him, can you really save him from the clutches of the evil cult at your level? No, you can't. So what exactly is it that you wish to achieve by throwing your budding career under the bus? Ladina questioned. As once normal logic failed, she pulled out the slightly sterner argument. My honor is a promise that I made to myself. My honor is what allows me to push myself harder in training, and it is what allows me to live my life with my head held high. Whether I make a difference or not is besides the point for me. For me, what is more important is that I try my best to save Darnell. That I make the maximum effort I could, regardless of the results. As only by living like that can I be happy with my own body, Leo said, as Ladina couldn't help but pinch the bridge of her nose in anger. Fool. This boy is a fool, is what she concluded, as she couldn't help but feel like she was talking to a brick wall. Leo could see the frustration growing in the eyes of Principal Ulrich and Ladina Horizon, but he didn't care. Unlike what they thought of him, he wasn't a fool. He understood perfectly as to what risks he was taking by leaving Rodova, the opportunities he was walking away from, and the comfortable future he was deliberately choosing to abandon, yet none of it was enough to make him waver. In truth, he had no intention of engaging Ulrich and Ladina on their terms. He knew very well that if he gave them logical explanations, they would only counter him with sharper logic and try to trap him in endless arguments, where they would try and paint visions of success and fame too vivid for him to ignore. But by framing his decision around something as intangible and stubborn as honor, he left them no ground to stand on. Honor wasn't a transaction. It wasn't a career move. It was a private vow, one that no amount of persuasion could touch. And so he remained steady and calm in his worldview, giving the duo nothing to grasp on. For a few seconds, the room was heavy with unsaid words. Then, Ladina, unwilling to admit defeat so easily, straightened her blazer and leaned forward slightly, her voice turning brisk but still laced with persuasive charm. All right, how about we do this instead? She offered, her tone measured. As Leo tilted his head slightly, curious but silent. You use the money you've earned by signing with Horizon to hire 2 or 3 Transcendent level warriors to aid in the search for Darnell, she proposed smoothly. This way, you'll not only be making a real difference, mobilizing people powerful enough to make a difference should they actually be successful in finding him, but you'll also be able to sleep easier with your conscience, knowing that you did your best trying to save him and even going as far as becoming bankrupt for his sake. She smiled, sensing a glimmer of hope. And as an added bonus, she continued, Horizon Dominion will match whatever amount you contribute. We'll hire 2 or 3 additional warriors under our banner, which should make this offer a no-brainer. She proposed, as Leo's eyes widened at her words, but before he could respond, Ulrich immediately sprang up, slamming a hand on his desk in support. That's a brilliant offer, he exclaimed, his face lighting up. Even the Rodova Military Academy will match it. For something as noble as rescuing a missing child, we will contribute the same amount as Horizon. He leaned forward, eyes gleaming. That means you'll be tripling the resources at your disposal, Skyshard. 6 elite warriors instead of 2. Think about it, the chances of success would be exponentially higher. The room was buzzing now, with Ulrich and Ladina practically vibrating with the satisfaction of what they believed was a perfect solution. And if evaluated objectively, it was indeed perfect. But that was only if Leo's true goal had really been to save Darnell Nuna. Which, it wasn't, as the truth was far more complicated. Leo had invoked Darnell's name as a shield, a convenient excuse to justify the path he had already chosen. As the real reason behind his departure from Rodova had nothing to do with honor or debts, but rather about reclaiming the missing memories of his family, memories that Mie and Faye had promised to return once he joined the Black Serpents Guild. And to Leo, those memories mattered more than his career, his fame, or even his personal growth. His decision was not something they could bargain away with promises of protection or success. Moreover, once he recovered the truth about his past and about the so-called mission he had undertaken for the evil cult, Leo wanted the freedom to act without institutional shackles binding his hands. He knew that if he stayed at Rodova, he would be chained. The institute did not allow its students to enter or leave at will, which meant that he would be unable to seek out or live alongside his family even if he managed to find them, for at least another year. He would be trapped in the endless cycle of training drills, academic classes, and mandatory circuit preparations, day after day. When what he needed was the freedom to walk whichever bloody, broken, or uncertain road he chose, whether it led back to his family or toward completing the unfinished mission he had once sworn to. Thus, even if Nian Fei somehow relented and gave him his memories without demanding that he join the Black Serpent Guild, staying another year in Rodova was simply not an option for Leo, who had already made his mind to leave. Hence, after carefully weighing his words, Leo finally smiled, and said, "I will indeed spend all the money I own, and I will hire the best help I can. Your suggestion is indeed brilliant, and I thank you for it." He began, as listening to his words, both Ladina and Ulrich straightened slightly, sensing a victory within reach. But then his tone shifted. "But even then," he said, voice dropping lower, "I'll still go myself." The room froze. Leo's voice didn't waver. His eyes didn't flinch. His posture didn't shift even a fraction. "Darnell didn't send others to save me, he came himself, he moved without regard for his own life, almost on instinct, and I have to do the same for the sake of my conscience," Leo concluded, as he stared into the eyes of Ladina without apology or hesitation. A truly foolish boy, and the worst kind of fool at that, Ladina thought, as her composure visibly cracked now, her expression turning sour, as she dug her own nails into her palms in frustration. Meanwhile, Principal Ulrich simply slumped back into his chair, exhaling long and slow, like a man finally accepting the inevitable. He had accepted that there was no winning against this stupid argument. Not against someone who had already decided what kind of man he wanted to be, and what kind he refused to become. And although it was idiotic, there was nothing they could do to stop him. "Can I have a moment alone with the boy?" Ladina said finally, her voice taut with barely concealed frustration. "If you don't mind," she added, glancing at Principal Ulrich. Ulrich pointed at his own face in confusion, then looked around the office as if making sure she was indeed talking to him. It was his own damn office, and yet here he was, being asked to leave like a guest overstaying his welcome. "Sure. I'll be waiting in the lobby outside," Ulrich said after a pause, suppressing his irritation as he stood up and made his way toward the door. Normally, he wouldn't have agreed so easily to such a request. However, Ladina Horizon wasn't just anyone. She was the damn CEO of the Horizon Dominion Group, and when she asked you to lend her your office, you simply did it. No questions asked. He didn't know what she wanted to say that he couldn't hear, but whatever it was clear that it wasn't meant for him. Click. As the door clicked shut behind him, the atmosphere in the room shifted almost instantly. The soft, understanding smile Ladina had worn all evening vanished. Her eyes sharpened, turning cold, professional, and predatory as she stepped closer to Leo. "Boy," she said, her voice low and cutting, "don't think for a second that Horizon Dominion doesn't know what you are, and what you've done." Leo's brow lifted slightly, genuine surprise flickering across his face. He had no idea as to where this sudden anger was coming from. "You are wanted on planet Terra Nova for leaking classified government documents and defrauding the state," Ladina continued coldly. "And there's an open investigation linking you to the deaths of 2 security officers." Her words hit like thrown daggers, but Leo didn't flinch. "You're no knight in shining armor, Skyshard. So cut the crap." She stepped closer still, standing so near that Leo could feel the faint warmth of her skin against his own. Despite her modest height, barely reaching his collarbone, Ladina didn't hesitate to meet his gaze directly, the sheer weight of her presence doing what her size could not. "The only reason you're not under investigation by the universal government right now," she hissed, "is because Horizon wiped your crime records clean before the circuit finals." We did it, she emphasized, jabbing a manicured finger lightly against his chest, because you were a good investment. Our rising star. And as long as you keep shining, we'll keep protecting you. Her voice dropped even lower, almost to a growl. But do something stupid like joining the Black Serpents, and I'll personally rip that shield out from under you. For a moment, Leo felt a dangerous heat stir within him. The urge to kill, to rip apart the woman daring to threaten him, flickered dangerously beneath the surface. But he didn't move, didn't blink. He simply stared at her, cold and still, his murderous instinct buried under layers of absolute control. Ladina smiled thinly, mistaking his restraint for submission. After the terror attack at the arena, a full background sweep was conducted on every single participant, she said. You somehow slipped into Rodova's ranks with your history, but without Horizon's quiet intervention, you wouldn't have made it out of the Sky God Arena without being detained. You owe us a debt of honor too, Skyshard. And I suggest you focus on repaying it first. She said flatly, as for a moment, the room remained frozen. Then, Leo threw his head back and laughed. A low, sharp, almost feral sound that made even Ladina take half a step back. Because in that laugh, there was no fear. Only contempt. Did you just admit to committing crimes and tampering with government records, right in front of me? Leo asked rhetorically, his voice flat with disbelief as he stared at Ladina. Ladina's frown deepened, but she said nothing. I have no memories of my past. That much is true. I walked into Rodova with a wiped mind, and everyone knows it. He stepped forward, the air around him growing heavier. If I truly were a criminal, I would surrender myself to the government the moment those accusations surfaced, he said, voice steady. Because those are the standards of honor and moral integrity I live by. Ladina's eyes widened in horror as she realized where this was heading. And I'm more than willing to do it right now, Leo continued, his tone almost casual. I'm not afraid of prison. I'm not afraid of punishment. He smiled thinly, like a predator baring his teeth. But I think the authorities would find it even more interesting to learn about the Horizon Dominion group, and how you altered my records without my consent. He let that hang in the air for a beat, before driving the dagger in deeper. After all, I have a rather sizable following now, don't I? How about I call up a few media channels and give them an exclusive? Tell them how the Great Horizon Dominion tampered with state investigations to cover up for a star product they barely understood. Ladina visibly paled, her professional mask starting to crack. You're bluffing, she snapped, trying to regain control. You wouldn't do that. Why would you? Why would you willingly throw yourself into prison? Her voice was tight, disbelieving. To her, it made no sense. Why would anyone, when faced with a clean escape, deliberately choose chains over freedom? But as she stared into Leo's calm, unreadable face, she couldn't tell if he was bluffing or not. For that cold, calculating gaze of his betrayed nothing. Am I really? Leo asked softly, tilting his head with a mischievous glint, his voice almost playful, but the danger behind it undeniable. Ladina felt her stomach drop. Because deep down, her instinct screamed the truth. Leo Skyshard wasn't bluffing, and by opening this door, by trying to intimidate him, she had dug her own grave. If Leo exposed the cover-up, the government would not forgive the Horizon Group easily. They would uncover how Horizon had orchestrated the murder of the lead investigator, how they bribed officials, falsified records, and spent millions cleaning up a mess they never fully understood. In the current political climate, with the universal government desperate to crack down on corruption after the Sky God Arena attack, Horizon Dominion would be dragged into the light and torn apart piece by piece. And Ladina Horizon would be the one blamed for it. Gulp. She gulped nervously, as what started as a move to intimidate Leo, had backfired so catastrophically now that she was becoming the one being intimidated instead. Since you call yourself my big sister, and since the Horizon Group wants nothing but the best for me, I'll let your crimes slide just this once, only for as long as you don't bother me. I'm going to find Darnell Nuna and save him, and until I do, I expect the Horizon Group to not send any stupid gear testing summons my way. I know it's written in my contract that I am to show up for exhibition matches as and when needed, but you can forget about it now. I'll show up for them once I'm morally free after saving Darnell, but not before, Leo said, as he patted calmly on Ladina's shoulders before turning to leave. See you around, Mrs. Ladina, it was a pleasure to meet you today, he said before leaving the room, as it was only now that Ladina realized that Leo was not a fool at all, but rather a tiger hiding in pig's clothing. Rodova Military Academy, the next day. Leo never heard back from Ulrich or Ladina after he walked out of the cabin yesterday, which he took as a positive sign that they had finally decided to leave him alone. He had really felt himself being cornered when Ladina began using his unknown past against him. However, thanks to Monarch's indifference keeping him calm at all times, he was able to think of a solution quickly enough to flip the situation on her. Well, none of it matters anyway. I was never going to agree to stay here another year, no matter what they said. But thankfully, I could resolve it without too much trouble, Leo thought to himself, as he made his way to the meditation manual selection archive, with today's goal being clear in his mind. He needed to pick a meditation manual that would guide him towards reaching the transcendent stage, and it wasn't a choice he could make lightly, as his whole foundation as a warrior would depend on it. Good evening, Mr. Skyshard, we have been expecting you. I have received the holographic copy of the previous meditation manual you were practicing, and the records do confirm that you have reached the next stage, which makes you eligible to access the next meditation manual, the assistant dressed in Rodova's standard uniform said, as he pushed open the doors to the meditation manual selection chamber, and gestured for Leo to follow. As a Monarch Tier student, you are eligible to select from the unrestricted section of our Transcendent Grade meditation manuals. I hope you find something you fancy today, the assistant said as he handed over a data slate to Leo. Thank you, Leo replied curtly, taking the slate and moving towards one of the small lounge chairs placed near the holographic bookshelves. The room was quiet and smelled faintly of old books and energy crystals, a fitting place for those about to make serious decisions about their future cultivation paths. Hundreds of options unfolded before him as he began swiping, finding everything from manuals crafted by ancient masters, to those forged by mythical warriors, and even some created by gods themselves, all available within the Rodova archive. He sifted through them methodically, eliminating anything that was too elemental specific, too restrictive, or simply didn't fit his vision for his future self. As after about an hour of careful reading, he managed to narrow it down to 4 options. 4 manuals that called out to him for different reasons. 1. Crimson Tyrant Physique. Originated from Helmuth the Berserker, one of the 3 founding gods of the Universal Government. This meditation manual focused entirely on reinforcing the body beyond mortal limits, saturating the flesh, blood, and bones with mana so dense that the user's body itself becomes a weapon. It emphasizes on physical regeneration, brute strength, and overwhelming resilience, at the cost of slowing down mana control and sensitivity. Pros: immense physical durability and strength boost. Passive regeneration abilities even in combat. Cons: mana becomes harder to manipulate delicately. Energy intensive, unsuitable for people with a shallow mana pool. 2. Monarch's Breath. Designed personally by Wade the Enigma. This technique emphasizes on achieving balance above all, merging mind, mana, and body into a single seamless existence, which helps reduce the thinking and response time behind any action. It enhances both spiritual awareness and combat adaptability, creating a practitioner capable of responding to threats instinctively rather than logically. And while it doesn't specialize in any single area, it still creates terrifyingly well-rounded warriors. Pros: boosts overall adaptability and combat instinct massively. Perfect for someone pursuing versatile battlefield supremacy. Cons: slower initial progress compared to hyper-specialized manuals. Requires extreme emotional control to fully synchronize. 3. Soul Hook Meditation. A sinister and intricate technique crafted by Morris, the Eternal Deceiver. Rather than focusing purely on power, This manual focuses on strengthening the user's soul, anchoring their existence so tightly into reality that killing them becomes exponentially harder through methods unknown to anyone but the practitioner of this method. Known benefits include incredible resistance to mind control illusions and soul attacks, basically making a user immune to anything that targets the consciousness directly. Pros: near immunity to illusions, mental attacks, and soul destruction. Increases survivability against cursed and spiritual opponents. Cons: slows physical and magical power growth slightly. Requires constant meditation maintenance or soul destabilization occurs. 4. Sevenfold Revelation Codex. A mysterious and peerless technique created by Caliph the Eternal Sovereign. The Sevenfold Revelation Codex trains the user to slowly unlock the ability to perceive 7 hidden layers of intent behind every living being's actions. These layers are said to represent emotions such as anger, joy, ambition, and killing intent, to name amongst others. At early stages, practitioners experience faint emotional ripples when observing others. But as mastery progresses, these subtle hints evolve into a vivid, almost instinctual awareness, letting the user see through lies, treachery, and even predict attacks moments before they happen. However, despite its allure, very few have ever made any progress training in this method, and none except the Eternal Sovereign himself has ever mastered it, fully unlocking all 7 layers. Pros: grants the ability to instinctively perceive hidden intentions and emotions during social or combat encounters. Allows early warning against ambushes, assassinations, and betrayal attempts. At high mastery, gives a decisive edge in both battlefield command and duels, reading opponents like open books. Cons: extremely slow and difficult progression. Each layer requires monumental mental fortitude and endless practice. Incorrect interpretation of perceived intents can backfire, causing mental breakdowns. Overuse during early stages can cause mental fatigue or emotional instability if the user is overwhelmed by too much external information. Leo leaned back slightly, his fingers tapping lightly against the edge of the slate as he studied the 4 glowing profiles before him. Each manual offered power. Each one had clear strengths, and clear dangers. But which path aligned with the man he was striving to become? The Crimson Tyrant physique was tempting. The idea of forging a body strong enough to walk through storms and shrug off mortal injuries was appealing, especially after he experienced firsthand during the circuits as to how often overwhelming force could decide the difference between life and death. But at the same time, he knew brute strength alone didn't suit him. He fought with precision, instinct, and deadly control. Hence, sacrificing finesse for bulk wasn't his path. In contrast, Monarch's breath was far closer to his natural style. The thought of merging mind, body, and mana into one seamless existence resonated deeply with him. As becoming someone who did not need to think before reacting, who simply moved with the flow of battle, was a future that excited him. However, it was still not the best option. Soul control meditation held undeniable allure too. Resistance against mental corruption and soul attacks was rare and valuable. But the maintenance requirement, the constant need for meditation just to hold himself together, was a heavy chain to bear, and Leo didn't want to live shackled to rituals. Which brought him to the final and most dangerous option: the Sevenfold Revelation Codex. A technique chosen by many, but mastered by none. None, save for Caliph, the Eternal Sovereign himself. And although it was undeniably the riskiest choice, something about the promise of seeing through the layers of human intent stirred a sharp, almost primal yearning within Leo. Having lost his memories, he had been forced to place blind faith in Mian Fei and the handful of instructors who surrounded him. But moving forward, he no longer wanted to rely on anyone. He didn't want a future dictated by the words of others, by facades and half-truths. He wanted to see. To peer into the hearts of men and grasp the truth hidden behind smiles, lies, ambition, and betrayal. For in a universe as treacherous as this one, strength alone was not enough. Trust could be a blade sharper than any dagger, and ignorance could be a noose tightened without warning. And so, for him, the ability to read intent was not a luxury. It was survival itself. After confirming his choice of wanting to choose the Sevenfold Revelation Codex, Leo walked out of the manual choosing area and headed straight towards dorm number A44, where a mage specialization student, with a particular set of skills resided. Rumor had it that this particular guy possessed a method to smuggle skill manuals and scrolls out of the academy, thanks to some special artifact hidden in his possession. Once outside, his contacts would swiftly replicate the contents before returning the originals, all without anyone inside ever suspecting a thing, which was why his services were rather popular amongst the first years trying to make a quick buck. Leo understood that it would be impossible for him to fully master a meditation manual within the mere 30 days remaining before the semester ended. As reaching the transcendent stage wasn't something that could be rushed. Even conservatively, it would take him at least a few years of relentless practice to reach the stage, if not a full decade. Which was why he knew just how crucial it was to have this manual replicated before he left. As without it, he would lose access to his daily progress meter once his time at the academy ended, making future progress far more difficult. Knock, knock. Leo rapped his knuckles twice on the door marked A44, standing casually in the dimly lit hallway of the dormitory block. A few seconds passed before there was a shuffling sound behind the door, followed by a click as it swung open. Standing behind it was a lanky young man with messy auburn hair, thick glasses slipping down his nose, and an unbuttoned Rodova uniform draped loosely over his frame. The moment Roger, the infamous smuggler of the first years, recognized who was standing at his doorstep, he practically froze mid-motion. His eyes widened into perfect saucers, darting between Leo's stoic face and the tiny Leo Skyshard action figurine sitting proudly atop a cluttered desk behind him. "Oh my God, it's you. It's Leo Skyshard himself," Roger gasped, pointing frantically between Leo and the miniature model. He let out a choked laugh, running both hands through his hair in disbelief. "I've always wanted to talk to you, you're like one of my heroes, please, please, come in," Roger said hastily, stepping aside and motioning him into the cramped but surprisingly well-organized room. Leo nodded once and stepped inside, as the door clicked shut behind them. Roger tried to compose himself, clearing his throat awkwardly as he practically buzzed with excitement. "So, what can I do for you, Mr. Skyshard?" he asked eagerly, clasping his hands in front of him like a nervous intern meeting a celebrity. As Leo wasted no time and presented his demands. "I need you to replicate something for me," he said, voice calm but carrying the unmistakable weight of seriousness. Roger blinked. "Replicate," he echoed, his enthusiasm dimming slightly as he adjusted his glasses. "A skill scroll. Or a library book. A meditation manual," Leo clarified, handing over the data slate with the authorization code for the Sevenfold Revelation Codex. The moment Roger read the label, his whole body stiffened. "T Transcendent Grade," he sputtered, staring at Leo like he had just asked him to forge a starship out of scrap metal. Leo only nodded once. For a long moment, Roger looked deeply uncomfortable, fidgeting in place as he weighed his next words carefully. "Look, I can smuggle it out for you. That part's doable," he said slowly. "But copying a transcendent-level meditation manual, that's an entirely different problem, I am not sure I can do," Roger said, as his words made Leo frown. "What's wrong? I'll pay you whatever you want," Leo said, as he assured Roger to not worry about payments. However, Roger only shook his head in response. "It's not about the money, sir. The problem behind creating or replicating a manual is that a warrior can only ever create a manual that's one grade lower than their cultivation and only ever replicate a manual that's the same grade," Roger began, as he adjusted his glasses. "Meaning, if you're a Grand Master, the best you can personally create is a master grade manual. But if you were a monarch, you can produce up to transcendent grade stuff, that's original and created by you," he said while pacing a few steps nervously around the room. "And while you need to be the same grade as the manual to copy it. The manual you have brought me is transcendent grade, which means I have to somehow find a transcendent grade warrior to copy it for you. And not just any transcendent warrior will do. I need to find a transcendent warrior who is also a scribe and can endure the strain of replicating every rune, energy channel, and structure embedded inside without their life force collapsing. Leo stayed silent, absorbing the information, as Roger continued, wringing his hands. Copying a meditation manual isn't like copying a normal scroll. It burns life force. A lot of it. It's a process that strains the soul itself, which is why most people only ever dare replicate lower-grade stuff for quick money. He looked at Leo almost pleadingly. And finding a trustworthy transcendent-level warrior on the outside. Someone who won't steal the copy, leak the existence of the manual, or try to blackmail you later. Roger shook his head miserably. That's very hard. The smugglers I usually work with for Grandmaster-level stuff are all people I know, people I can track down and punish if they cross me. But Transcendence? He gave a helpless shrug. Different league. Leo's gaze sharpened slightly. Are you saying it's impossible? Roger hesitated. I'm saying, it's very risky, he said. And it's very expensive. Leo didn't move. He simply continued staring at Roger with that steady, patient intensity that made it clear he wasn't walking away. Under that pressure, Roger visibly wilted. He rubbed the back of his neck, muttered something under his breath, then finally threw up his hands. You know what? Screw it. You're Leo Skyshard, he said, grinning half crazily. I'll do it. I'll find someone. But it's going to cost you, he added quickly, raising a finger. 200,000 MP. Non-negotiable. Leo nodded almost instantly, as if the amount meant nothing to him. Done, he said. As Roger blinked again, clearly expecting a harder negotiation. But seeing Leo's unwavering acceptance, he realized exactly what kind of man he was dealing with. Leo Skyshard wasn't a peasant, and could actually pay 200,000 to have a manual copied, even though it was the same amount of money as a professor's yearly salary. All right then, Roger said, voice firming up slightly. Give me 2 days. I'll arrange it. Leo turned toward the door, pausing just long enough to throw a short nod over his shoulder. 2 days, he repeated. Don't disappoint me, Roger. Then he was gone, leaving Roger staring after him, half thrilled, half terrified at the job he had just agreed to undertake. I have to do this. I must not disappoint Leo Skyshard, ha ha ha. This will be a story that my grandkids will tell their grandkids when Leo becomes a monarch someday. That their old man used to smuggle manuals for Monarch Leo Skyshard in Rodova. Ha 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 ha, Roger said to himself, as he resolved to get this done anyhow. The next few days passed in the blink of an eye for Leo, as he spent most of his free time sharpening the 2 new skills he had acquired, while also preparing for the final exams looming ahead. It was the last semblance of peace, the final stretch of routine and order, that he would experience for a very long time. And so, he made the most of every day, training with quiet determination, fully aware that the life waiting beyond Rodova would be nothing short of chaos. Unfortunately, Su Yang continued to avoid him during this period, maintaining the cold distance he had set between them. News of their fallout spread quickly across campus, as given how inseparable the two had been before, their sudden estrangement became the talk of the town, but Leo paid little attention to such gossip. In just a few more days, he would be gone from Rodova for good. With his Black Serpent's recruitment interview already scheduled for the day after graduation, Leo could feel the finish line drawing closer with every passing hour. And for the first time in a long while, the future felt both thrilling and terrifyingly uncertain. Meanwhile, on planet Tithia. If Ixtal was the spiritual heart of the evil cult, home to the divine presence of God Soren, then Tithia served as its operational brain. It was here that the cult's elders maintained their offices, its armies trained, and the real machinery of power ground forward day after day. And while Leo prepared to conclude his student life at Rodova, across the stars, the 12th elder of the evil cult, Noir Ashburn, better known by his moniker, the Dead Man, finally secured an audience he had been seeking for weeks. As Mian Fei's direct handler and a powerful figure in his own right, Noir had spent considerable effort trying to arrange a meeting with the First Elder, the de facto head of the Elder Council and the true wielder of executive power within the cult. However, with the First Elder overwhelmed by internal crises ever since the abduction of Darnell Nuna, as it was only now, after prolonged delays, that Noir was finally summoned for a formal audience. You have done well to keep the boy hidden so far, and I can see why you are so excited about him, the First Elder said, his tone thoughtful. A talent like his is exceedingly rare, even among the dragon candidates. Even I was impressed by the boy's performance during the circuits, he admitted, stroking his beard with one hand while casually brewing tea with the other. We have lost far too many dragon candidates in the past, due to internal betrayal within the guild, the 12th Elder, Noir, said quietly, accepting the cup of tea the First Elder handed him. I do not intend to repeat the same mistakes we made with Noah. He paused, letting the words settle before continuing. I propose we wait, at least until he reaches the transcendent realm, before acknowledging him formally as the dragon. Only then will he be strong enough to survive the chaos that follows. Noir said, as the First Elder calmly stroked his beard in response. For a long moment, the First Elder said nothing. Then, as if reaching a decision, he spoke carefully, his voice low and deliberate. Ensure that his past is erased completely, and that he is properly indoctrinated into the cult in the coming months. You have my full support to groom the boy as you see fit. He paused briefly, his eyes narrowing slightly. However, be warned, the 4th Elder's faction is preparing a dragon candidate of their own in the shadows. You are racing against time, Noir. If the 4th Elder's candidate seizes legitimacy before your boy is ready, the matter will be brought before the council, and we will be forced to put the title of dragon to a vote. My hold over the council is weakening. The once calmer heads are now gravitating towards the 4th Elder and his radical plans to set the cult on a war path against the righteous faction. And if the matter does go to a vote, he won't need to convince too many to have his boy selected, the First Elder warned, as Noir raised his eyebrow in alarm. Even he understood the political undercurrents within the Elder's Council. He was by far the youngest and the weakest Elder, while everyone else was more or less old monsters, with the 1st and 4th Elders being one of the strongest. For years, the First Elder had kept the Elders' Council a place where calmed heads prevailed over the radical voices. However, with the 4th Elder's recent success in managing to kidnap Darnell Nuna, the tides were inevitably shifting. The common netizens had celebrated the destruction of the Sky God Arena as a festival, and the morale of the evil cult workers was at an all-time high despite the excessive universal government crackdown. All this made the 4th Elder very popular currently, and only emboldened his followers within the council. I'll keep your warning in mind, First Elder, thank you for your time, Noir said, as he put his cup down, as both him and the First Elder stood up at the same time. I won't interfere in your choice to send him to the Black Serpent's Guild, if you feel like that is the best place for him to grow. However, remember that you can always bring him to Tithia if things go wrong, and that although we haven't trained a dragon in the last 25 years, we have not forgotten how to do it either, the First Elder said, as Noir respectfully bowed to him. I will keep that in mind, First Elder, Noir said, before taking his leave, as he let out a long sigh on his way back. If possible, he wanted to bring Leo to Tithia at the earliest possible date. However, his paranoia surrounding the circumstances leading to No's death did not allow him to introduce Leo to the cult just yet. Strangely enough, he felt that the world outside was safer for Leo than the very cult that was supposed to worship him as their savior. And deep down, he was certain he could not introduce Leo to the cult just yet. Not at least for a few more years at the least, until he became a transcendent-level warrior capable of fending for himself. However, that didn't mean today's meeting was without its victories. For one, he had officially reported to the First Elder that Leo's Skyshard was a hidden asset he was cultivating in the shadows, and received full approval to continue grooming him as the next dragon candidate, a decision that gave a much-needed boost to Noir's morale. Additionally, he secured something even more valuable, the First Elder's permission to invoke his name if necessary, allowing him to mobilize the cult's deepest assets to quietly erase any lingering traces of Leo's past that might someday surface and cause trouble. Both of these developments were reasons for celebration, as after today, no record of Leo Skyshard's life before Rodova would exist anywhere across the universe. From this day forward, Leo was no longer just a pawn wandering unknowingly through fate, and was now officially a hidden son of the Cult of Ascension. Rodova Military Academy, Genetic Awakening Chamber. Just 1 week before the final exams, Leo and Su Yong were escorted by Major Hen toward the Genetic Awakening Chamber to receive their 5th and final Genetic Awakening shot. Unlike the earlier injections, the 5th shot carried the heaviest dose, designed as the final gamble to awaken whatever dormant potential still slumbered deep within their bloodlines. After this, their genetic awakening would be considered complete, and the sealings of their futures as warriors would be sealed, for better or worse. Step. As they made their way toward the chamber, Hen walked a few paces ahead, casting sharp glances over his shoulder at the two boys trailing behind him, his face curled into a frown as the tension between Leo and Su Yong was impossible to ignore. "What's going on between you two? Why are you walking 10 feet apart?" Hen asked bluntly, his tone more curious than accusatory. However, Su Yong offered no response. He kept walking with his gaze fixed forward and his jaw rigid with unspoken anger. While Leo only shrugged, his face unreadable, his gray eyes distant as if the question itself wasn't worth answering. Hen frowned but didn't press the matter. Friends fought sometimes. It wasn't his business. And besides, they had bigger things to focus on today. Inside the awakening chamber, the military doctors already seemed to be waiting for Leo and Su Yong to show up, as they prepared their dosage shots. Without ceremony, Leo and Su Yong were guided into adjacent pods, their usual ones which they had used all year. Leo caught a glimpse of Su Yong looking at him through the transparent glass, his golden eyes angry, while his muscles remained taut like coiled wire. "What?" he mouthed. However, Su Yong only angrily looked away and did not offer more words or looks, as the doctors injected them with the serum shots simultaneously. Su Yang's pod. The moment the serum entered his bloodstream, Su Yong felt it. A firestorm ignited inside him, tearing through every vein, every bone, every fiber of his being just like it had several times before. His muscles spasmed violently as his bones elongated slightly, his entire skeletal frame creaking under the intense, brutal transformation. He gritted his teeth, refusing to cry out, even as the pain hammered him without mercy. He could feel his body changing, his lungs expanding, his limbs thickening, his core strengthening in ways that defied explanation. His mana circuits, once narrow and strained, were widening by the second, becoming wider and more robust. Somewhere deep within his mind, flashes of unfamiliar memories surfaced, echoes of warriors from his prestigious bloodline. New memories, new instincts, a raw new skill weaving itself into his very consciousness. When the stabilization systems finally slowed the serum's rush, Su Yong lay still, his heart hammering against his chest, a thin sheen of sweat clinging to his forehead. As he seemed to have survived it. He had evolved. And he had gained a lot from the 5th shot. Meanwhile in Leo's pod. At first, Leo's body reacted similarly to Su Yong, in the sense that his pulse skyrocketed, his muscles stiffened, and pain racked his every cell. But then, something different began to happen. Something not written in any academy handbook, or the recorded history of genetic awakening in general. A strange, unnatural pressure bloomed in the center of his torso, not in his heart, not in his lungs, but in the empty space nestled between his diaphragm and his ribs. It started as a tight knot of heat, barely noticeable at first, but within moments, it blossomed into an unbearable storm, a vortex of energy so dense and violent that it felt as though the very fabric of his body was being torn apart. The POD's stabilizers whirred urgently, adjusting their systems to contain whatever anomaly was unfolding, but the pressure only grew worse. Leo's vision blurred, his chest heaving painfully as his body instinctively tried to fight the transformation. Because he could feel it, something alien, something ancient, something building itself inside him. He could feel a new organ forming. It throbbed painfully at first, consuming mana like a black hole, weaving itself strand by strand into his very being and embedding itself into his core. Pain lashed through him with every pulse, but Leo held on grimly, clenching his fists so tightly that his nails dug into his own palms, blood dripping into the pod's fluid suspension system. He could feel the new organ sinking with his natural heart, refining the volatile serum flooding his veins into something pure, something terrifying. As from that moment onwards, he suddenly experienced rapid improvements in every physical and mana-related aspect of his body. His muscle fibers improved in quality. His bones strengthened. His lungs expanded in size, and many such qualitative changes occurred to not just his body but also to his mana circuit, which became smoother than ever before. Meanwhile, outside the pods, Major Hen hovered over the monitoring panels, his eyes narrowing as he watched the data streams. Su Yang's vitals were elevated but within expectations. But then, as he looked at Leo's panel, he almost couldn't believe what he was seeing. Warning: Mana heart formation detected. The words blinked furiously across the screen, flashing red again and again. Hen's stomach dropped. Mana heart. What even was a mana heart? He had never heard of it before. He tapped the screen frantically, pulling up the Academy database, but there was nothing useful, except sparse theories and unverified legends. None of it prepared him for seeing it happen live. What the hell is happening to you, Skyshard? Hen muttered under his breath, anxiety gnawing at his chest. He could only pray Leo survived it. Because no medical textbook in the universe could guide them now. Inside the pod, Leo exhaled slowly through gritted teeth, feeling the newborn mana heart synchronize with every beat of his original heart. The pain hadn't disappeared, it simply became something he accepted, something he wore like a second skin. However, despite the searing pain that racked his body, Leo could feel it, the undeniable change coursing through him. The blood flowing through his veins grew heavier, richer, more potent with every heartbeat, while the mana threading through his circuits became sharper, denser, almost electric in its vibrancy. It was as if his very existence was being reforged at the most fundamental level, purified beyond the natural limits of mortal flesh. What is this? What is this feeling? Leo wondered, gritting his teeth as an unnatural heat bloomed fiercely near the center of his chest, radiating outward like a second sun. His mana heart roared into full activation, pumping raw mana alongside blood with every synchronized thrum, the two streams intertwining and nourishing each other with terrifying efficiency. It was overwhelming. It was agonizing. But it was also exhilarating. Because deep down, Leo knew, this power wasn't something that could be given or inherited. It was something he was birthing within himself. As the final pulses of the awakening serum settled, and the chamber's alarms gradually faded back into a low hum, Leo remained lying silently within the pod, his gray eyes half-lidded but burning with a new, unshakable intensity. He wasn't fully sure what he had become or what was the reason behind him unlocking a new organ during his final awakening. However, what he did know for sure was that he had never felt stronger than this ever before. Rodova Military Academy, Genetic Awakening Chamber. Once the neuropods hissed open, Major Hen immediately moved in, supporting both boys out of their capsules and toward the recovery room. For the first time since Leo's arrival at Rodova, Hen felt the boy's weight against his shoulder, unsteady, heavy, exhausted. He's never leaned on me before, Hen thought, glancing sideways at the pale young man beside him. Not even after his first shot. If he's doing it now, his body must be truly battered. After carefully helping Leo onto the recovery bed, Hen wasted no time pulling up his data slate and running a series of keyword searches on the term flashing still in red across Leo's vitals panel. Mana heart, formation confirmed. What he found left him more confused than reassured. According to every available source, the mana heart wasn't supposed to exist in humans at all. There were no confirmed cases of a human being born with such an organ, nor were there any reports of one forming as a result of genetic awakening, making Leo's case the first of its kind. The little information that did exist traced the phenomenon back to a very specific source: ancestral dragons. All ancestral dragons were born with a mana heart, though the organ didn't fully activate until adulthood. Its primary function was to act as a filtration and compression chamber, removing impurities and enriching both blood and mana before pumping it back into circulation. This filtration granted ancestral dragons a staggering edge in both longevity and combat. Some estimates even claimed that a fully awakened mana heart could boost a dragon's lifespan by centuries and increase their battle capability by up to 30%. It was the reason why, even among dragons of the same tier, the presence or absence of an active mana heart created a difference as vast as sky and earth. After all, the purer the mana flowing through one's circuits, the stronger the output of even the most basic techniques. It was the same logic that allowed a transcendent tier warrior to unleash a fireball spell that would vaporize an entire canyon, while a master tier could barely melt stone with the same move. However, while rudimentary studies existed on mana hearts in dragons, what little existed regarding their transplant or formation in humans was grim. A few desperate warriors had once attempted to surgically transmute the mana hearts of slain dragons into themselves, but all of them had died within days, suffering violent systemic rejection as the foreign organs slowly poisoned their bodies from the inside. There had never been a case of a human forming one naturally. Until now. Hen rubbed the back of his neck, staring blankly at the screen. This isn't supposed to be possible, he muttered aloud, torn between awe and concern. Just what the hell are you becoming, Leo Skyshard? Sigh. Forward report to principal. Hen forwarded the report to Principal Ulrich at once, hoping that perhaps he would have access to more information. Meanwhile, within the recovery room, Leo and Su Yong lay side by side, bruised and battered, breathing in sync beneath the faint hum of medical monitors. Su Yong broke the silence first, his voice hoarse but laced with a half-crazed grin. I can't believe this is the last time, Skyshard, I can't believe you're really leaving. Leo turned his head slightly, a weary smile tugging at his lips despite the ache burning through every inch of his body. About time you spoke, princess. You've had quite the royal attitude the past few days, he murmured, his voice dry and raspy. Su Yong coughed out a laugh, then chuckled deeper, something caught between amusement and regret. Yeah, I'm still mad at you. But, this might be the last peaceful moment we get. So I figured, why the hell not? His voice turned quieter, gentler. I wanted to recruit you as my right hand, Skyshard. And I say right hand, metaphorically. You'd always be my equal. My brother. Leo didn't interrupt, just listened in silence. You know I'm one of the successors to the Su family patriarch position. Once this academy chapter ends, I'm going to be dragged into a world of politics, bloodline alliances, and cold, suffocating power games. Su Yang's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. I hoped, we'd have 1 year. One final year to fight side by side, to battle like hell, to push each other to our limits and kick some Geneva ass before the wolves came for me. He glanced sideways, voice cracking slightly. But without you, it just feels gray. The one rival who could keep me sharp, the one man who made the spars feel exciting, will now be gone. He exhaled, a long, bitter breath. I don't even know what to look forward to anymore. It's like a fog's already rolling in, and I haven't even left yet. Leo said nothing, because he knew Su Yong wasn't done. You're like a storm, Skyshard, Su Yong muttered, his voice softer now. You move on instinct. You think 5 steps ahead, but never bother telling anyone where you're going. Half the time I don't get you, and the other half, I guess wrong. There was no malice in his tone, only truth. I respect what you're doing for Darnell. Hell, it's the kind of honor I wish I had in me. But what pisses me off is that you didn't talk to me. Not once. You just made your decision and moved like I wasn't even part of your calculations. His voice trembled slightly, not from anger, but from vulnerability. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's not that deep. But when you treat everything like it doesn't matter, sometimes, I feel like I don't either. A pause. Then, a low chuckle. You're such an asshole, Skyshard, no wonder I'm your only friend. Su Yong added, laughing now for real, nervous at first, but slowly easing into something freer. Looser. And somewhere between the laughter and the silence, Leo's own chuckle joined his. It wasn't loud, nor long. But it was real. And just like that, the weight between them, days of cold shoulders, unsaid words, and bottled emotion, began to dissolve. Who knows, Yong, Leo said at last, his voice faint but steady. Maybe one day, if you do need a blade in your corner during that patriarch struggle, you'll find me there. Then, after a brief pause, he added with a smirk, besides, it's not like I'm dying. I'm still alive, aren't I? We'll meet again for sure. Su Yong turned his head, looking at him through half-lidded eyes. True, he whispered, as he nodded his head. Promise me you'll be there when I need you, and I'll promise you the same, Su Yong said, his eyes opening sharply now, as Leo nodded back in acknowledgement. I'll try my best, that much I promise. Meanwhile, Principal Ulrich's office. Principal Ulrich's gaze flicked to the blinking notification on the corner of his data slate. Urgent. Subject Leo Skyshard, genetic awakening status anomaly detected. He tapped it once, his fingers hovering over the View Report button. Then, with a tired sigh, he closed the tab entirely. He's not our problem anymore, let the Black Serpents deal with their precious prodigy. He said to himself, as he tossed the matter aside, without even checking on what the anomaly was. The next few days passed in a quiet rush for Leo. He poured every spare moment into mastering his two newly acquired skills, Storm Flash Traverse and Astral Hookbind, drilling the foundational movements into muscle memory until he managed to reach basic proficiency in both skills just 2 days before the final exams began. His body seemed to accept the mana heart now, as he saw remarkable increases in his strength, endurance, agility and spell output, which almost made him feel like an entirely different warrior. As a result, when the final exams rolled around, he aced all the physical training parameters, even outshining Su Yong. While also scoring first place in practical combat and basics of perception class, achieving perfect score in all of the core subjects. However, the real challenge for him was never these subjects, as Leo knew he could pass them with his eyes closed, as his real challenge was always passing the basics of magic theory class, after David caught on to how he was cheating to pass during the circuits. However, to his shock, David said nothing during the finals exams after handing him his sheet of paper, nor did he try to prevent him from cheating like he did in the midterms, as although he knew how he was cheating, David turned a blind eye to his behavior, allowing him to pass with ease. Perhaps it was his performance in the circuits that softened David up, or perhaps it was the fact that he was leaving the academy at the end of the semester, and David did not wish for him to linger around for a retest. But either way, he let him pass with ease, with Leo also managing to pass the potions class and stealth class to receive his provisional degree for completing 1 year at Rodova. The goodbyes that followed were all swift. Leo bid farewell to Su Yong with a silent nod and a firm handshake, the two brothers exchanging no words apart from a silent promise to meet again someday. Mu Shen offered a respectful bow, and a short hug, thanking Leo for all the memories made together. While Mu Ryan shed a tear as she said, "Don't die out there, big brother. We still need someone to beat Su Yong someday when he gets too arrogant." Leo only smirked, patting her on the head on his way out. However, before leaving, Leo stopped by dorm A44, for one last time, as he handed to Roger a cashier's check for 200,000 megapixels. 200,000 MP, as promised. Roger took it with reverence, both hands shaking. "You're a legend, Sir Leo. Seriously. I'll tell this story till I die. You'll find your copied manual delivered to you as soon as you step outside the academy and walk for about 200 paces. Just take it and run," Roger informed, as Leo offered him a rare half-smile before turning away. Leo's last stop before leaving Rodova was meeting me and Faye. The woman looked at him with proud eyes and a precious grin, as she handed over to him 2 parting gifts. The first gift was a dagger set, a different one from the Horizon set he was currently using, with varying types of twisted and spiral blades, that he could use during tough combat missions. And the second gift was a small spatial storage ring, inside which Leo could store all of his essentials during his time outside the safety of Rodova. I've stocked it with all the essential potions you may need in an emergency and some miscellaneous items such as smoke bombs and poison vials. I've also stored inside a communication crystal that you can infuse your mana into to call me anytime from anywhere in the universe. And a list of emergency contacts across various planets, in case you ever lose the crystal, or are in need of finding a safe house, Faye said, as Leo accepted both gifts with a gracious bow. I'll be calling you very soon once I clear the Black Serpents Guild entrance interview. Will you be able to come over to Twin Fang Planet to restore my memories? Or will I have to fly back here to get them? Leo asked, as Faye shook her head in denial. I'll be nearby, don't worry, she replied with a mysterious smile, as Leo nodded and made his way outside her room, and towards the exit of Rodova Military Academy. Once outside the academy gates, the actual planet Rodova stretched before him, as Leo felt baffled looking at the vast metropolitan city. Having lived a sheltered life within academy walls, Leo had never seen much of the actual planet apart from some aerial views that he enjoyed right after takeoff or while landing into the academy hangar. Well, time to find Roger's mysterious contact, Leo muttered to himself, as he walked 200 paces in the direction Roger had instructed him to, where he found a cloaked figure waiting beneath a solitary transport beacon, his face obscured and his presence muted. Leo Skyshard? The man asked, as Leo nodded in confirmation. Without another word, the man handed over a hardbound book which happened to be a precise copy of the Sevenfold Revelation Codex. Leo accepted it, feeling the cold leather of the book warm up on his touch, as he flipped open the book to confirm its contents before giving the man a nod as he continued to walk forwards. His destination was the Interstellar Transport Shuttle, from where he intended to catch a transport ship to the Black Serpents Guild headquarters. It was about a 20-minute walk, and once there, he found a small ship capable of making the journey, and boarded it without any reservation. Hiss. As the ship doors sealed shut with a hiss and the engines began to hum, the onboard AI asked. Destination. Leo answered without hesitation. Twin Fang Planet. Headquarters of the Black Serpents Guild. As the ship whirred into motion and the screen loading the expected time of arrival at roughly 40 hours 23 minutes. Timeless Assassin, Volume .3. A world untouched by time. Dash 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 dash. Me and my colleagues once had the opportunity to study a tainted creature who had accidentally made its way out of a still world. What struck us wasn't its strength, nor the degradation of its form, but the clarity of its madness. It spoke of memories that never existed, wars that never happened, and gods that had already died. To the tainted, truth is a moldable thing, bent by delusion, reshaped by agony, and sharpened into faith. They do not scream because they are in pain. They scream because they want you to believe it's beautiful. Professor Alan Drex, Chronobiological Anomalies and Mana Degradation, Volume 112. Dash 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 dash. Black Serpents Guild Headquarters, Twin Fang Planet. Clack, clack. Antonio's boots clicked rhythmically against the marble black tiles of his office floor, the sound echoing faintly off the walls before fading into silence. He walked with purpose, but without direction, tracing the same invisible path over and over again like a prisoner pacing the length of his cell, except this one was adorned with velvet drapes, ancient weapons, and a desk that hadn't been touched in over a week. It had been 40 days. 40 days since Dupravel Nuna, the man that even other monarchs feared to face in battle, had stepped into that cursed tear in space. And was yet to come back from. No one else knew. The rest of the Black Serpents moved through their days with practiced obedience and quiet ignorance, unaware that the heartbeat of the guild had gone silent. There had been no announcement, no emergency protocols, no shift in command. Only Antonio knew where the guildmaster had gone, and more importantly, how long he was supposed to be gone. Because contrary to what the name suggested, a time-stilled world wasn't truly frozen in time. No, time still moved there, but it just moved wrong. Slower, denser, like trudging through molasses while the rest of the universe sprinted ahead. One day outside the tear was equal to 100 inside. A paradise for anyone looking to train in isolation, to squeeze decades of progress into mere weeks, if they were willing to risk everything else that is. Because what people didn't understand, or rather what most refused to understand, was that a still world wasn't a training ground. It was a graveyard, a half-dead wound in space, cut off from the rest of the universe, and a world where mana had long since stopped flowing and begun festering. What once was pure energy, like the mana found in the rainbow stream of cosmic energy had, over the centuries, grown stagnant in the time-still worlds and had curdled into something poisonous. The mana inside a still world was no longer a river but a stagnant pool, long uncleaned, long forgotten, its waters thick with decay, unfit for even the lowest of beasts. It didn't kill outright, but rather seeped into the cracks of one's soul, altering thought, corroding memory, and burying whatever remained beneath, leaving behind something that, although still looked human, was anything but human. And that was the biggest reason behind why, once awareness about the dangers of a time-stilled world began to spread, there was almost no one who entered such spatial tiers willingly anymore. Because once the body began circulating the tainted mana, although it became abnormally stronger, it also started to become unstable. Rage came first, then obsession, then delusion, and then came the silence. The kind that settled in one's mind like fog, until they forgot why they entered the time-stilled world in the first place. People who lived inside the still world for a long time, often forgot their own names, forgot the sound of their own voice, and most often than not forgot that there ever was a world beyond the still one. As the time passed, the world corrupted them entirely, changing them into something they were not, which those in the outside universe referred to as the tainted. The tainted were creatures with immense power but no morality. A powerful form, but no sentient memory. They no longer knew what they had been, only what they had become. And Dupravel had now been inside such a world for 40 days. Which meant, for him, over 4,000 days had already passed. Clack, clack, pause. Antonio stopped pacing, the weight of that number sitting heavier than ever on his chest. 4,000 days. Alone. Surrounded by nothing but poisoned mana and the howls of the lost. Not even a monarch can endure that unscathed. Not mentally. Not spiritually, Antonio thought, as he clicked his tongue in regret. He had trusted Dupravel to come out of that forsaken realm in under 3 days. He had believed that such a time frame would be enough for Dupravel to map out the world and its threats and make a plan to retrieve the origin metal stored inside. However, he was wrong. It had been 40 days now, and if Dupravel did not return in a couple more days, Antonio would be forced to treat him as a lost cause. I don't even know what I'll do without you, Antonio muttered in exasperation, as he felt truly lost without Dupravel. He was Dupravel's first real friend and follower, who was riding his coattails from before Dupravel had even become a transcendent level warrior. He was there when Dupravel had founded the Black Serpents Guild, and was present when he killed the dragon Noah and claimed his treasure. Never before had he ever worried about Dupravel and him returning from a battle alive, as never before had Dupravel ever failed to return from even the deadliest of battles. However, this time, for the first time since he began following Dupravel about a century ago, Antonio no longer felt sure if he'd ever see him again. Not as the same man, at least. Because while everything else inside a still world moved slowly, madness, as it turned out, was always fast to catch in there. Black Serpents Guild headquarters, Twin Fang Planet, 2 days later. The commotion began as a whisper. A distant tremor in the ground. A strange flicker of mana surging as a disheveled figure wandered toward the guild gates in tattered, blood-stained robes that no longer held shape or status. The man looked filthy as he limped on all fours like an ape, and was covered in black grime and dried blood, his face hidden beneath a tangled beard and sunken shadows where eyes should have been. The outer guards paused, confused. They had never seen someone like this on Twin Fang Planet, where no beggars lived, and hence they immediately became cautious. "Sir, you can't be here. This is Black Serpent's property, please identify yourself or face detention," one barked, stepping forward, hand on his weapon. However, the figure said nothing in response. The guard raised his voice. "Last warning, identify yourself or be detained." And then came the flash. Not of light, but of death. A single slash, that was both silent and effortless, as it tore through air like divine judgment, cleaving the front half of the guild building as though it were made of paper. Kaboom! The sky shuddered. Walls collapsed. Entire sections of the compound crumbled, catching dozens of staff and elite soldiers in the wave of obliteration. Arg! Chaos! Screams! Panic! Screams followed. Then alarms. Red sirens wailed across the complex as defensive protocols activated. Spells ignited. Auto turrets locked in. Within seconds, the guild's inner elites were on the scene with their blades drawn, mana flaring, each one ready to strike down the intruder that had just massacred their comrades and razed half their sanctuary to the ground. Until they saw Vice Guildmaster Antonio, bursting onto the scene, cloak flying, eyes wide in disbelief. "Stand down!" Antonio roared, his voice cracking across the courtyard like a thunderclap. "All of you, stand down, now!" he said again, as the Black Serpent soldiers hesitated, feeling confused. "But Vice Guildmaster, that's him!" Antonio yelled, breath ragged. "That's the Guildmaster!" No one moved. Not until the creature standing amidst the rubble turned its head, baring its teeth, letting out a low, guttural growl more animal than human. Antonio took a step forward, slow and deliberate, his palms held out. "Dupravel," he said softly, voice trembling. "It's me. It's Antonio." Another growl. Lower this time. Sharper. Antonio kept walking. "I'm not here to hurt you, brother. You're home now. You made it back. We'll fix this. You'll see." Behind him, the elites looked on in horror as the Guildmaster of the Black Serpents, the supreme monarch they had once revered, stood hunched, eyes feral, body twitching with wild mana surges, like a beast in the throes of starvation and rage. "Get the clarity potions," Antonio snapped without turning. "All of them. Bring the mind healers now." He didn't care how many saw it. He didn't care how undignified it was. This wasn't about the guild anymore. This was about saving what little remained of his friend. Crystal Chamber, Medical Wing 3 hours later. Dupravel sat curled in the center of the reinforced chamber, twitching every few seconds, as his eyes flicked toward unseen enemies. His nails were cracked, jagged and caked in dried blood. His lips were split. His robes, once royal, now hung in shredded clumps off his body, blackened by tainted mana burns. His skin was peeled in patches, raw muscle and bone visible underneath, while his aura flickered and collapsed like a dying flame trying to reignite. He refused to let anyone near him, forcing the healers to work from afar, as they cast gentle mind-calming spells. Antonio stood just outside the containment barrier, trying everything from words, memories and promises to threats, insults and rants, but nothing seemed to be going through, as Dupravel seemed to have forgotten human language. Every time Antonio tried to hand over a clarity potion, Dupravel smacked it away with a snarl, shrieking incoherently. Until, in desperation, Antonio grabbed a dog bowl and poured the potion into it, before kneeling and pushing it through the gap into the holding chamber. Sniff. Sniff. Grr. Dupravel sniffed. Snarled. Then, slowly, shaking like a fevered animal, he crawled over and licked the bowl clean. Antonio didn't move. Didn't flinch. Even as his throat tightened and his chest felt hollow. Even as shame and heartbreak swirled in his gut. He just waited. The healers increased their output. 2 more bottles followed. And again, Dupravel drank them the same way. Only after 10 doses, and over 2 hours of distance healing, Did the creature that used to be Dupravel begin to change? His eyes stopped flickering. His breathing steadied. And then, just barely, he spoke. I was chasing it. It spoke to me in No's voice. It wore my wife's face, but she's been dead for, how long has it been? His voice was frantic, thin, a whisper moving faster than thought. Each word stacked atop the next in a mess of trauma and jumbled timelines. I killed it. Then it laughed. I bled black for weeks. Then the floor screamed. Then the ceiling turned to eyes. I saw Antonio. But it wasn't you. It wasn't you. It wasn't you. Antonio felt his heart stop. Even after feeding him so many mind clarity potions, Dupravel still seemed to be broken. As even after countless hours of healing, it seemed like they could only restore his tainted mind by so much. More. Get this man more mind clarity potions. Healers, double your output, your guildmaster needs you. Nobody slouch. We must save him today, or we may never be able to save him. Antonio shouted desperately, as he knew exactly what was at stake here. They needed to rescue Dupravel before the taint of the still world mana forever corrupted his mind. The longer it was allowed to fester, the more damage it did, which was why time was of the essence here. The fact that Dupravel somehow found his way back here meant that he had some semblance of sanity left, however, it desperately needed saving. Black Serpent's Guild headquarters, Recovery Wing, 2 days later. The man sitting in the corner of the reinforced chamber looked like Dupravel Nuna. He spoke like him. He gave orders like him. But Antonio wasn't sure if it really was him anymore. Dupravel sat slouched on the floor, not the bed. His eyes darted around the room, never once meeting another's gaze. His lips moved even when silent, as though muttering to voices only he could hear. His left arm, torn open days ago from compulsive scratching, still bled in patches, but he kept clawing at it anyway, as though if he tore away enough skin, he might finally be clean of the taint. Dupravel, Antonio said softly, sitting a few feet away on a stool. Talk to me. I am talking, the man replied, his voice thin and uneven. You're just not listening fast enough. Antonio didn't correct him. Instead, he waited as Dupravel reached under a heap of torn robes and pulled out a scroll that was frayed, blood-stained and warped by corrupted mana. I mapped it, Dupravel muttered. I found it. What? The castle. Valdera. Center of the world. The origin metal is there. His hand shook as he pressed the scroll into Antonio's lap. You need to go. Antonio slowly unrolled the parchment. Within it was a map drawn in uneven strokes. Some of it looked carefully charted, annotated with arrows and coordinates. Others were smeared, overwritten, or drawn over with childlike symbols and unexplained spirals. And these? Antonio asked, lifting another set of folded pages, notes, written in Dupravel's unmistakable script. They explain everything, Dupravel said, eyes staring into the corner. Everything. All of it. I wrote it so I wouldn't forget. Did I forget? Did I forget already? You're fine, Antonio said gently. You did good. As he flipped to the first page. Points to remember. 1. Entry point stable. Mana density is increasing as predicted. 2. Avoid dark-rooted trees, they leech your thoughts if you touch them. 3. Do not follow the music. It's not music. 4. I saw Noah. He's still dead. But he tried to speak. 5. The hills near the 7th spire bleed when cut. Avoid. 12. Water is black, not liquid. Feels like ash. Tastes like despair. 23. Nights last 30 hours. Sleeping during them is a mistake. 35. Saw a mirror version of myself. It looked stronger. I let it walk away. By note 50, the tone began to shift. 52. The ground whispers when I run. I tried to apologize. It asked for my eyes. 58. I forgot my name today. I think it starts with D. Or, dead. 67. I buried my heartbeat in the soil so nothing could find it. I still hear it scream. 79. The sun blinked at me today. By note 100, comprehension had begun to decay entirely. 101. The numbers aren't in order anymore. But the teeth are. 108. He wears a crown made of my regrets. 117. Don't eat the blue clouds. They remember being people. 125. Laughter keeps following me. It sounds like Antonio. 132. Stop writing. The ink is made of screams. 139. Valdora is not a castle. Valdora is a wound. 147. The door bleeds when I draw near. I think I'm the key. 150. It guards the metal. It likes names. Don't bring yours. Antonio stared at the final page, the ink sloppier now, almost carved into the parchment. 153. Am I not me? I'm the one that came back. He slowly set the pages down. Dupravel hadn't moved. Schedule an expedition, Dupravel murmured. Soon. Send men. No stronger than Grandmasters. Why? Antonio asked quietly. If it's that dangerous, shouldn't we send our best? Dupravel finally turned his head, just slightly, although his eyes remained unfocused. The stronger you are, the louder you are, he whispered. Strength calls strength. Everyone's a beast in there. And beasts don't fight mice. He scratched his arm again. This time down to the bone. A lion may not chase after a mouse running through the forest, he muttered. But he will never allow another lion to hunt in his territory. Antonio's throat tightened, and though the man before him was barely stitched together in mind or soul. Dupravel Nuna looked like he was still trying to lead the guild, even from the edge of madness. Understood, Guildmaster. I'll post a notice for the same in the rewards hall. Gather willing participants, Antonio said, as Dupravel randomly began beating his chest like an ape. Thud, 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 asterisk. Each subsequent strike was stronger than before, making Antonio worry that he might break his own rib cage. However, after the third one, he stopped abruptly. Offer them anything. Offer them any reward from the treasury if they retrieve the origin medal. Tell them to set the limit as 500 days. 500 days. No more. No Grand Master can spend more than 500 days in there without going insane. And tell them to carry their own mana stones before the expedition begins. Tell them to stop cycling mana from the surroundings and to only absorb mana from the stones that they carried, as that will help slow down their mental decay. Dupravel advised, with a broken voice. Understood, Guildmaster. Antonio said, as he stormed out of Dupravel's cabin, suppressing the tear that was welling up in his eye. He couldn't bear to see Dupravel in such a state. As whenever he saw his old friend in such a miserable state, he couldn't help but feel boundless hatred for Darnell and his wretched mother, who Dupravel continues to simp for even after losing his own sense of self. I always knew that bitch Jessica was more rotten than the mana inside a still world. It took 11 years for the wretched world to corrupt Dupravel's mind, however, the bitch did more damage in just 3 short years. The poison she poured into Dupravel's mind, and the cursed spawn she left behind, or the chains that dragged my best friend into madness. And for that offense, I'll never forgive them. Antonio said, as he made his way to the mission posting center, to put up the latest and most lucrative mission the guild had ever posted yet. Twin Fang Planet, Outer Docks, 10:15 a.m. The shuttle hissed as its doors slid open, revealing the soft sand landing bay of Twin Fang Planet's central arrival terminal. Step. Leo stepped out without a word, adjusting the straps of the slim duffel over his shoulder as he took in the cityscape ahead. The city was built like a shrine, with the Black Serpents Guild headquarters looming at the center like the central jewel on a crown. A circular structure carved from volcanic stone, laced with silver veining and serpent motifs etched along its outer spires. Looking from afar, it did not seem like just another building. But rather it looked like a power statement. A testament to the Black Serpent Guild's greatness. Encircling the central headquarters like loyal vassals were the rest of Twin Fang's city buildings, the lodging complexes, taverns, armories, meditation halls, forges, and tactical classrooms, all designed to support the guild and its sprawling army. The inner rings were reserved for guild members and high-level guests. The outer zones housed auxiliary professions, blacksmiths, potion makers, arena bookies, and civilian-run cafes that sold overpriced noodles to impressionable rookie warriors. Leo walked with unhurried ease, his eyes scanning everything but lingering nowhere. He wasn't here to explore. He was here to embed. His destination was a smaller building that stood modestly to the side of the main fortress, a 5-story tower made of polished metal and glass, with a long line of hopefuls stretched around its base. The new recruitment's office. A place where warriors from across the universe stood in line with dreams in their eyes and desperation in their blood. Of course, nearly all of them would be rejected. 9,999 out of 10,000. That was the statistic. The serpents didn't just take in the strong, they took in the elite and useful. And that definition rarely included common hopefuls. Leo joined the queue without a word, standing behind a hulking bear-like alien adjusting his armor straps. His presence drew a few glances, with some recognizing him and cheerfully approaching for an autograph. However, Leo shot them down with a cold glare, and even roughed a couple of them up that dared come too close. At exactly 10:45 a.m., a small overhead panel blinked blue. "Leo Skyshard, please proceed to room 2B." A feminine voice said, as he walked in. The interviewer looked up from his holographic files and froze. His eyes widened. His mouth parted slightly. He blinked, once, twice, before blurting out. You're Leo Skyshard. From Rodova. Their most promising young warrior. What are you doing here? Leo offered a faint smile, not out of politeness but calculation. I am here to serve, he said calmly, placing his provisional degree and battle portfolio on the desk. The guild stands at a crossroads. I know about the guild's situation and how everyone is desperately trying to locate the guildmaster's son, Darnell Nuna, and I wish to be a part of those efforts. I was there when Darnell was kidnapped and it's only because of him that I'm alive today. I owe him a debt of honor, and it's for that reason and that reason alone that I have decided to end my student life early and join the Serpents instead, so that I may contribute my bit to making this guild whole again. The interviewer stared at him, practically trembling. That's very noble of you. Unbelievable, even. A rising star from the Rodova Academy wanting to wear our emblem. He gave a nervous laugh. I don't even need to ask you questions. This is a yes. Absolutely. Approved. He slapped a red, approved, stamp onto Leo's physical form with a bit too much enthusiasm. Normally, the man continued, shuffling papers awkwardly, a candidate is required to pass psychological evaluations and physical exams before final approval. But in your case, I doubt there's any need. Still, my superiors shall make the final call. Please wait outside. If needed, they'll summon you for additional tests. Leo nodded and stepped out of the room with the same expression he'd worn walking in, as he remained neutral, poised and unreadable. Twin Fangs City, recruitment lobby, 11:15 a.m. He waited. 5 minutes. 10. 15. No alarm. No challenge. No call. At 11:32 a.m., a guild staffer approached him with a sealed packet. Leo Skyshard. He gave a silent nod. Congratulations. These are your guild robes, identity badge, accommodation voucher, and orientation schedule. She handed him the package and smiled, perhaps the first genuine smile he'd received since landing. Your immediate superior is Mr. Raiden. He's requested to meet you for lunch today at 2 p.m. He'll walk you through your duties, guild policies, and expectations. Until then, you're free to explore Twin Fang City. Leo took the packet and gave a quiet nod. The assassin robe that was a standard issue within the guild was heavier than it looked. While the badge seemed to be cast from unreactive platinum, so that even after years of use, its shine and luster remained intact. Internally, Leo felt glad that he was not summoned for any psychological evaluation or physical tests, as although he wasn't afraid of failing any physical test, it was a good feeling to know that his reputation preceded him, and that he wasn't being made to perform the same actions as commoners. Well, it seems like fame does have some uses, Leo thought to himself, as he walked back out into the city. As with his meeting with Mr. Raiden scheduled at 2 p.m., he had nothing but time for the next couple hours, with nothing important to do. I'll contact Faye once my meeting with Mr. Raiden is over. Now that I'm officially a member of the Black Serpents Guild, She should return my missing memories back to me, Leo thought, as he couldn't help but chuckle at how Faye went to such extreme lengths to shield him from a psychological evaluation test. However, in the end, it turned out he never needed such help in the first place. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.